Yes, Rashmi, am I audible? Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible and visible, and we can hear you.
Yeah, let me know when you're
Can
starting.
you hear
Okay?
us? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you all once again, and hope everyone has logged in. On behalf of the host college, SPCGCA, and the Department of English in particular, I, Mohita Prasad, moderator for today, along with co-host Dr. Anil Dadij, extends a very warm welcome to our esteemed resource persons and each of you participants on the 6th and final day of the Gyan Ganga FDP. You will agree with me when I say that it has been a very intensive and intellectually invigorating week for all of us. This collaborative venture has certainly redefined the cause of excellence in education and endeavored to update and empower faculty members in the academic context. In just a short span of 6 days, we have been deluged with knowledge in keeping with the title of the project, Gyan Ganga, and have had eminent scholars from all over India who have enriched us with their wealth of knowledge and experience on the different aspects of language and literature. Their range and sweep of topics has been immense and wide-ranging. This venture to recalibrate and reinvent our education system to optimize learning and broaden horizons has given us all a lot of food for thought. Now, with that thought, let me introduce you all to the 3 speakers of the day. The first speaker for today will be Dr. Mrs. Sandra Lee, who retired as head Department of English, Sophie College, and served the college for 44 years and is still associated with the college as the HOD. The second speaker is Dr. Rajni Sharma, an associate professor from Government College, Ganganagar, and the topic of her presentation is teaching literature through stylistics and linguistics. The third speaker of the day is Dr. Sarita Jain, an associate professor in GD College for Women, Alwar, and she will be deliberating on teaching poetry and language learning through literature. But before I formally introduce Mrs. Sandra Lee, the first speaker of the day, there are a few announcements to be made. The report for today's 3 sessions will be prepared by Dr. Gopal Krishan Sukhwal and Dr. Panchali Sharma. Please stay connected as random attendance is being taken in all the 3 sessions. And also don't forget to fill the feedback form for all the 3 sessions before logging off. Now let's take the program forward. Today, I have the privilege and pleasure to introduce to you all Mrs. Sandra Lee. She has a brilliant academic record and has received the Chatterjee's Gold Medal for being the topper in MA and was a topper in MPhil as well. She retired from Sophia Girls College, Ajmer as head Department of English after serving the institution for 44 years. Presently, she is still associated with the college and is giving her services there as the head. During her tenure, she was the coordinator of NAC and IQSE and Spectrum, a dramatic club. Her area of specialization too is drama, and Sophia College has staged some exceptionally good plays under her able guidance and supervision. As a person, she is very endearing and believes in the maxim simple living. She is still doing what she loves best, that's teaching, which is her passion. And she is a wonderful and dedicated teacher and has been instrumental in shaping minds, touching hearts, and molding careers. Her students have excelled in various fields and are holding prestigious positions around the world. Some of us here at SPC GCA 2 have had the privilege of having been taught by her and have been inspired by her and to the cause of education. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and being a part of this program. Ma'am will be deliberating and sharing her views on the trends, approaches, language, and literature. Besides delivering her talk, she will also be the chairperson of the technical session and give an overview of today's deliberations. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Ma'am Mohita.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Hello, thank you, Mohita, very much for that very appreciative introduction and all the nice things that you said. And thank you at the outset to the principal and the head of department, Ma'am Manju, Dr. Manju Sharma, and all the members of the coordinating committee for inviting me to present my views on the particular topic that you are having as a faculty development program. So without further ado, I begin by sharing my thoughts on the particular topic, the theme of your, as you will see, your faculty development program. So I start by addressing, I don't know if your principal is here, the principal of Government College, it's still Government College to me, Dr. Pratibha Yadav, and the coordinator, just a minute. The coordinator of today, that is of your FDP, Dr. Manju Sharma, the members of the Department of English, and also to all the academicians who are present for this FDP program, the young and the old, the experienced and the inexperienced, and all the ladies and the gentlemen. So as you know, my dear friends and colleagues, we are living in a totally different world. You know very well that the world has changed 360 degrees, and it's not just for the older generation like me, but it is also definitely for you young people, because I don't think that any one of us could have ever imagined such a scenario that we have witnessed in the past 11 months. Yes, as you know, we have been traumatized by an invisible enemy, isn't it? And I'm sure that all of you and all of us, including myself, we've had to really put on our thinking hats and have had to think how we as academicians can go forward, because this particular virus and its mutants don't seem to be going away anywhere at any time in the near future. So, as you will see, we are now living not only this age of coronavirus, but we are also living in an age which we can now call the age of cybernetics, isn't it? And as you will see, we as teachers, okay, have definitely, the young and the old, have definitely seen a marked change in the students. And this is what made me think. And therefore, as you will see, I was trying to think about the trajectory of education and academics in the past 4 decades, as you will see. So what I am trying to share with you today is something from my own experience and from something which I have been, as you will see, observing. So when I talk about the topic, trends and approaches in the teaching and learning of literature and language, I have tried to phase my particular talk into 2. The first one will be the trends and approaches in the teaching and learning of literature. And the second one will be, the second part will deal with the trends and approaches in the teaching and learning of languages. So now you know very well, I don't have to tell you what literature is, because we all very well know, we have learned it by heart, and we've been told that literature is a mirror to life, literature is a criticism of life, literature is an imitation. We know what literature is. But it goes without saying that literature is definitely very, very important and valid even in this present day age. Because when you talk about literature, as you know, literature comes under the humanities. So when we talk about literature, what do we think? We usually say that what does literature do? Literature, as you will see, makes us more humane. Literature makes us empathetic. It makes us sensitive, and that is the need of the day. We have to be sensitive not only to the people around us, sensitive to our family, we have to be sensitive to the environment, we have to be sensitive towards the needs of the destitute and the lesser privileged, we have to be sensitive towards global issues, isn't it? So literature makes us empathetic, literature makes us creative, literature makes us imaginative. And in this particular day and age, when I think all of you will agree that most of us and most of the young people have become so self-centered, I think literature is definitely a tool by which we can, through our teaching, also impart certain eternal values. We can emphasize on relationships. We can emphasize on what relationships? Family. Family really matters. I mean, we are looking around and we are noticing how families are breaking down, how there is, please remember that there's always been, if I talk about this, there's always been a generation gap. Maybe there was a generation gap between myself and my parents, but there is still a generation gap, and that gap is becoming wider. So we have to, and we can, through literature, talk about familial relationships. We can talk of filial relationships, it's necessary. And as you will see over here, when you instill in your students definitely these eternal values, we are going to make the world a better place. Because literature will be a way, literature will be a method by which we can reach out to our students. Remember that they are not only, as you will see, don't think, let's not say and put the blame on them and say that they are self-centered. There are reasons why they are self-centered, because they don't have the time. They don't have parents who can guide them. They literally miss our teachers. And I mean, I'm not putting the blame on teachers, because remember, we have so much of work to do. I'm sure all of you have realized that during this lockdown, I mean, the work day exists for 24/7, and work culture can continue right up till 8 and 9 in the night. There's no Saturday, Sunday, there's no midnight, there's no morning, if you will agree with me about that particular thing. So what I want to tell you is that it's very important that we realize that literature is an important tool to develop a good human being. Now, when we talk about literature, as you've seen, your topic is approaches in the teaching and learning of literature. There are different approaches. There are, for example, you have approach of language-based teaching. So language-based teaching, that is, as you will see, now, if you have a text, I'm just giving you examples about how perhaps we would go about language-based. Suppose you have a text, suppose you have a poem, okay? I believe that every teacher must have a kind of a lesson plan or must have a kind of a sequential order, and also be very clear about what are the objectives of teaching that particular topic or poem or drama or whatever it is. So, for example, when you talk about language-based, if you are, for example, teaching a poem, it would be good to see what is the important structure in that. So you take an important structure, simple. All of us know all the structures. If it is S plus V plus O, subject, verb, object. You pick up one of those sentences from over there, and then perhaps you teach this structure. Are you getting it? So you can have a structure based, or perhaps another example could be, you could see that the poet has used, for example, as you will see, a first person narration. So you could emphasize on the use of the first person and how we use the first person. What is the second person? What is the third person? Okay, so these are certain things we have to be very, very clear about our objectives when we are teaching. And as I'm saying, when I'm talking about the approaches of literature, there are basically 6 approaches to literature, teaching of literature. One will be, as I said, the language-based one. The second one will be the paraphrastic, or what we simply call paraphrasing. Okay, paraphrasing or writing whatever we have in simple language. Unfortunately, it's at this particular point that I want to point out that most of our students don't even know how to paraphrase. They don't know, as we would say, simply to write in simple English and to write grammatically correct sentences in their own words. I'm sure all of you know when you do your corrections, yes, when you do your general English corrections, have you noticed that when there's a comprehension, the children, the students just pick up words because in the question they have seen 2 or 3 certain words, they'll just copy it by heart. So leave alone writing in their own words. Remember, many of our students cannot even comprehend. They cannot understand. So it's important, as we will see, we can use literature, number one, as I said, to teach a language, to teach a certain structure, to teach a grammatical structure, to teach a tense, by picking up from that particular text something which is important. You could also ask the students to paraphrase. Now, it's at this particular point that I have to point out that when they paraphrase, it's very important that the class has to be interactive. The students should be encouraged to talk. The students should be encouraged to write. The students should be allowed to speak even if it is in broken English. And a very important rule, which I perhaps make in my classes, is that no matter what you do, please do not use Hindi. I'm not being anti-Hindi. I'm not being anti-mother tongue. But remember, you must tell your students that first and foremost, literature is something different and language is something different. And if they want to speak a language, they will definitely have to speak the language and they will have to listen. So as I've said, the first approach was what? The language-based approach. The second approach, as you will see, is the paraphrastic application. The next one is, for example, the third type of approach to teaching literature is what we call the information-based approach. Now, what do you mean information-based approach? I'll give you a simple example. Okay, we are teaching literatures to students in India, and a very simple example is, for example, we are teaching daffodils. Are you understanding it? Remember, the daffodils is a very English flower. Most of our children have not seen daffodils. So it's very important, as you will see, to make them aware of what are daffodils. Now, when you look at the poem Daffodils by William Wordsworth, you will see, as you read, remember that the poem is based on a lot of minute observation. So that's another important point which literature can do and which should make us do. That is, we should develop a minute observation. We should develop this inquisitiveness, this curiosity in our students. Unfortunately, girls, again, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same thing. You know, all children, according to me, I'm not only talking of higher education, all children, most of you are mothers and fathers, you know very well that the child is so curious. A child has innumerable questions of what is this? When did this happen? Why is it like this? How is it like this? Who told you this? But we have a tendency of silencing our children, telling them keep quiet. We have a tendency of giving them the mobile, you know, but it's very, very important that children have to learn right from the beginning. In the same way, when we are talking about our first generation learners of English, we have to give them certain information. Now, I'm just telling you a very simple thing. The other day in college, I was teaching Pike, P-I-K-E, Pike, Pike, okay, a poem, as you will know. And what happens in it, none of the girls, even though they were at MA level, seemed to know what is a pike. So what I did was, you know, it's also very important not to spoon feed them. We all have our WhatsApp chats nowadays. I told them to just download an image and to put it on the group and to show what is a pike. And when they saw the pictures of the pike, they knew exactly what the poet was talking when he talked about its jaws being like a saw. He's talking about the size of the pike, from a minute pike which just grows upon the leaves of the lily pads which are floating in the pond. Are you getting to a huge pike which could be even up to 7 pounds? So it's very important that children learn, students learn. I mean, I don't know about in other colleges, but this is one of the methods because, you know, dear friends and colleagues, today we are living in a world when, let me tell you, everything is available at the click of a button. I don't think the students need us. And I think you are also aware of the fact that, well, today, Ramji Lal, Maheshwari, sorry, all of them are now outdated because students are not even going to buy books when they can have everything on their smartphones. So if they have the smartphone, I don't see why we should not adapt and allow them to use the smartphone. And very important is to involve them in this teaching learning process. So again, as I said, we have, what do we have? The different approaches in teaching literature. You could have the language-based approach, you could have the paraphrastic approach, you could have the information-based approach, and in the information-based approach, then you can go to another level. Now, after talking about this particular thing and perhaps teaching a structure or teaching a word order, or as you will see, teaching some grammar, teaching some vocabulary, what could we do? We could go to a little higher level where then you ask them to respond personally to the poem. And of course, what do? We start off with simple questions, like, for example, what is the size of the pike? Where does the pike live? Where does the pike lay its eggs? What is the baby of a pike called? It needs a lot of pre-preparation, and it needs a lot of thinking. And as teachers, we have to be very, very clear of our objectives, also keeping in mind the fact that we have to know what is the level of our students. So there's a personal response. Okay, now, for example, after taking the personal response, you ask them, for example, what has the poem, or what has the drama? What do you think the drama is teaching you? What do you think about it? What is your response to it? What is your personal feeling? What touched you? What did you like about it? Okay, do you agree with what the writer is saying? And then we go to another level where, as I told you, because I am again emphasizing that literature is definitely and can be used for moral education, for giving our children ethics. They need to. We have to teach them, because remember, All of us, dear colleagues, we are in the shoes of the parents. The children come to us, they look up to us. Remember, we are their heroes and heroines. Okay. And they are definitely modeling themselves on us. So it is our duty to inspire them. It is our duty to motivate them. And it is our duty to teach them. We must, I believe, and we have to come back to that very, very beautiful ancient guru shishya relationship, where the guru was somebody whose feet you touched, where the guru was somebody whom you looked up to, where the guru was somebody whom you admired, where your teacher was the perfect person. You know, many of you have small children, and I'm sure you sometimes struggle when you want to correct your child and tell your child something, but the child will say, no, teacher said this, miss said this. Because remember, the teacher for the child is God. So what I'm trying to tell you is, my dear friends, that, you know, we are in a way demigods. We are in a way heroes and heroines. They look up to us. And we must never, ever, you know, allow them to realize that, well, we have clay feet. I'm not saying we are perfect, but our attempt is to be ideals. Our attempt in our profession is to be ideals, because I always believe, dear friends, that teaching, whether at the school level, whether at the college level, whether at the research level, teaching is not a profession. We should not be in this profession for the money. Teaching is a vocation. Teaching is a call. Okay. And therefore, as you will see, when you have taught your particular thing, ask them, what is the philosophy? What are the principles? What are the eternal values? What is it that touched you in this? And then, of course, we can come to the stylistic thing, which all of us do. And I think one of the next speakers will be dealing with stylistic. So you're commenting upon the style, you're commenting on the, as you will see, the figures of speech, and you're commenting on the stanza form and the genre, and you're commenting upon, as you will see, the, you know, the rhyme scheme and all that kind of thing, the literary devices. But what is very, very important, as you will see, another thing, my dear friends, is that we should encourage our children to think creatively. They shouldn't be able to just repeat by heart what they have learned, a critical appreciation of some particular poem, which is sure to come. Okay. They should be able to think for themselves. They should be able to open up new avenues. They should be able to open up their mind to thinking and writing for themselves. And let me tell you that it's very, very true. We have children from CBSE and RBSE and even the International Baccalaureate. Are you getting it? But most of our CBSE students who have got 99 and 100, I don't know how they get 100 in English, okay? They think they know everything, but believe me, when they come to you, even these students with 100% are not perfect. There are mistakes. After all, we make mistakes. I still make mistakes. And I think that we should be able to correct those mistakes to teach. So what happens at the college level is definitely that you will have to again teach and reteach and again lay a foundation which perhaps has not been laid. You also have to keep in mind that many literature students come from non-literature backgrounds. Okay, so don't think that they have done a poem and they have done, for example, My Mother at 66, or, for example, you know, any of the poems that are prescribed over there, so that they know everything. There's so much more to go into. So my first point, as I have dealt with just now, is, what did I tell you? I said I have dealt with 6 approaches in teaching literature. What were the 6 approaches in teaching literature? You had the language-based one, where you pick up a language structure and you teach them. You have the paraphrastic, where you paraphrase. You have information-based, where you tell them and ask them for information. You have one where you have the personal response of the students to the text being taught. Then you have the moral or the philosophical approach, where you introduce them two, moral values, and you have the stylistic approach. I'm not going to deal with the stylistic because I see that somebody is going to do that. Now, when you talk about the next particular point, it's teaching trends and approaches, isn't it? So when you think about this is, for example, if you are teaching a poem, it would be nice, I'm just talking about strategies. It would be nice, for example, now you have, say you have a sonnet. Let's say if you have, because now Sophia College is autonomous, so we have a little different thing. But if I remember, we too were once a part of the university. And so if you're teaching, for example, the first thing that you've taught is a sonnet. Okay, so it would be nice either if you took, sonnets, and if, for example, you taught together sonnets which were Petrarchan and Italian, and then you taught a Miltonic sonnet. Okay, then you showed them a Wordsworth sonnet and you showed them the difference, and you did a Shakespearean sonnet and you showed the difference. You can ask, by doing this, you are also helping the students to compare and contrast. So you can club together your teaching strategy by taking, teaching genres. So I gave an example of how about poems. You can take sonnets together, you can take lyrics together, and then you can do another lyric, as you will see over here. And once you have done this, perhaps you even, compare it to and ask them now, okay, you have read this poem, Daffodils. Have you read any other poem by Daffodils? Have you read Two Daffodils by Herrick? So that's how you bring in. And remember, when we are talking about the learning pyramid, remember rote learning and memory learning is at the lowest level of the pyramid. We have to take them to comprehension. Then you have to take them to the ability to compare and contrast. And then you come to the higher level thinking, that is analysis. So this could be about poetry, about novels. What I feel really, not only as a teacher, but as a mother also, is that we, as a parent, we have to inculcate a love for reading. Children do not read today. They do not read at all. But it's important to make them read. So if you're parents and young parents, I beg of you, please see that you spend that special time in the night when you take a book and you put your children to sleep. Not only are you spending quality time with them, but you are also getting them into the habit of reading. There's so much available, there's such a variety available. And remember, whatever they read, whether they read a novel, whether they read fiction, whether they read romance, whether they read, now most of them are into, they are into reading fantasies, they are into Avenger series, into graphic novels. Are you getting? There's so much available. Remember, I think all of you know that it's so easy nowadays to, go on to Amazon and to buy a book. It's so easy to publish. Sometimes I'm amazed when my students introduce themselves and say, I'm a published writer, I'm a published poet. And I wonder how, but then you can self-publish these days. So a very important thing which we as teachers have to realize is that we have some students who are average, some students who are mediocre, and some students who are brilliant. And in our class, we have to be able to capture the attention of every student. That is where lies the ingenuity of the teacher. That is where a teacher, as you will see, the influence of a teacher begins. So when you are dealing a novel, what would I do? I would divide the novel in my class and I would tell them, okay, first 5 chapters is given to Kakoli, chapter 6 to 10 would be to Mohita, 7 to 8 to somebody XYZ. And I would tell them, okay, you tell me the plot, you tell me the summary in short, you comment upon the characters, you comment upon their development, you comment upon their characteristics, their feelings, their emotions, their relations, as you will see over here. And then from your particular, reading of the text, what you have come to know. So that is basically, as I would say, something about, because, we can go on and on about how you would teach literature. There's no end to literature and there's no end to reading. You also know that when we are talking about the trends in literature, One very important thing is that please, those of you who are on the board of studies, I think you should make it into a habit to change the syllabus, at least every 2 years. Okay, so to change the syllabus every 2 years, because you're teaching the same thing, Macbeth and Othello, for years and years and years. And obviously, when you're teaching it, you begin to become relaxed and you don't even read further. You know, you have your notes there with you. You know, you have your points. And remember that today, as we will see, I mean, literature and has, the way that literature has grown. I mean, when you're talking about literature, remember today, we are talking of diasporic literature. We are talking of feminist literature. We are talking of women's writings. Very important, we are talking about upcoming writers from Africa, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Commonwealth countries. We are talking very important news, Dalit literature. And let me tell you that I think what is a very, very upcoming, should I say, trend in literature today is translation. Many of you young people who have this gift of language, who have a knowledge of 2 or 3 different languages, our Indian culture and writing has so many beautiful stories. Please translate. Please tell your students that this is an avenue where there is a lot of money. Are you getting it? And remember that it's not only the writer, it's the translator who also gets the honors. This is a field where there are lots of job opportunities. There's so much of beautiful literature in Tamil, in Kannada, in Malayalam, in Orissa. What about doing something about our Marwari or Rajasthani or Punjabi? Or maybe you could take any particular dialect and then translate. Let's go into translation studies. Let's change our syllabus. Another very important thing is writing of the underprivileged, the Dalits, as you will see. What about writings of tribals? What about writings of the colored people? I'm sure all of you must have been floored when you heard that young youth poet Amanda Gorman read her poem at the inauguration of President Biden. This 22-year-old has been brought up by a single mother. And what is important and what touched me when I read up about her, because I had not heard about her, was that she had a speech defect. But do you know what she did? She worked hard to get over this speech defect. She was flawless. Her diction, her pronunciation, the rhythm that she had in her, the style that she had, the right accent. When I mean accent, I'm not talking of the American accent, the right stress, the right word. She was magnetic. I think all of you would agree with that. So we have to think about these young people. There's so many budding writers, not only in America. There's so many budding women writers who are coming up. Let's think about this. Okay, these are the new trends which you will see. And another very important trend, which is catching up a lot is, as you will see, cultural studies and also film studies. And just to share with you, we had a very brilliant young lecturer of ours, one of my own ex-students, who did a brilliant workshop on, the manner in which Shakespeare has been adapted into Hindi cinema. So these are certain things. What I'm trying to say is that, dear friends, there is no end. Every day somebody is being published. And I've also heard that on Amazon, I don't know if you know this, that you can be the number one for just maybe 1 hour, and then you will be displaced by somebody else. So the world has changed dramatically, and we also have to change with this changing world. So with that, I finished the first part of my thing where I've talked about the trends and approaches in, as you will see, the teaching of literature. Now I come to languages. Okay. Now, most of us, we are aware of the fact Again, I'm not being an Anglophile, and I don't have a colonial mindset. I don't have to emphasize on the fact how important English is in the present day, in the modern world. I am not only talking about a monopoly of English, because I feel sincerely now, I wish that when I was younger, because I had, okay, a father who could speak Konkani. My mother was English. My grandmother could speak Urdu. And I wish I had learned these languages. And today's scenario, you know very, very well that you have young couples. So you'll have a Punjabi marrying a Kannada, and you'll have them being brought up by either a Maharashtrian maid, okay, or a Gujarati maid. And they will definitely learn Hindi, and I presume they will learn English. So why don't we inculcate and develop this love for languages? Let our children be proficient in 4 and 5 languages. And I'm not saying only English. Let them be proficient, and then they automatically will not only not lose sight of their culture and their family and be aware of the cultural heritage of India, but they will also, as you will see, have another avenue. Are you getting it? Another avenue for a job. So when we are teaching our students, now I'm going to come to that particular point. I have about, how many minutes do I have? Another, I think, another 10 minutes maybe. So I'm going to, we all know that teaching a language involves, as you will see, 4 skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Okay, as I've told you already, you know, you can learn a language by speaking and listening. I'm just going to share something with you which floored me completely. Last week, I went to Pushkar, to somebody's place, and there I met an American. Okay, he has been living in Pushkar for 8 years, and he for 8 years has picked up Kalbelia children. Many of you go to Pushkar, and you will see just next to the toll, where we pay the toll, there are these Kalbelias living in tents. He has picked up these Kalbelia children. Number one, he has put them in a government school, but he teaches them English and he teaches them math, and he talks to them only in English. And I was absolutely floored by the way these Kalbelia children were talking English. They had his accent. I'm not talking about American. They had his accent. They were talking about, hey guys, we'll meet at this particular time. Believe me, he has taken them for movies so they could talk about the Avengers. They could talk about Thor and Spider-Man. Okay, they knew about Catwoman. There was a boy who was brilliant. I mean, he's maybe now maybe he's in the 8th or 9th class. But do you know, he was wanting to know about currency. This is the word that he used. He says, what is the dollar? What is the Indian equivalent of dollar? And if it is a rupee, is there a Pakistani rupee as well? And how much is the Pakistani rupee? And he was talking, whether it was in broken English, whether there were some mistakes. Remember, he was talking in English, because this particular person talks to them in English. They listen to English. They see English movies. Are you getting it? And he's also teaching them maths. So I think what is important is, as English teachers, number one, in class, you have to first see what is the level of the student. Okay. One more point I must point out to you. For example, he just took a kind of a viva of these children, and he said, you know, could you name 10 animals in the sea? So this boy says aquatic, animals in the ocean. And this boy came up with things like octopus and hydra and blue whale, things which I don't think even our convent educated children could, you know, talk about. We would, if you ask a first year, second year, first class, second class, it'll be cat, dog, pig, cow, goat, and they've learned it by heart. Look at the vocabulary. They could name flowers. They could name fruits. I didn't know some of the flowers. I could not name any of some of these flowers, and they knew, and they were pointing out to flowers. So there's nothing which is impossible under the sun. It just needs dedication. It just needs a love and, as I said, a passion for what you are doing. So for example, I said that when you talk about approaches to language, we know that we are catering to speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Okay. What I tell my children, my girls, is still very important is maybe you do not have an atmosphere of English at home, but at least what you can do is when you're having your meals, put on a good news channel. I'm not talking about BBC or CNN. Put on a good news channel, at least listen. You know, it's very important to listen. You can tell them that there are so many apps where you can check your pronunciation. I still do check my pronunciation if I hear something different. Okay. What is important is the curiosity. You can, of course, all of you know that there are any amount of videos and audios which are available on YouTube and so many other apps. I'm sure that many of your students, you know, are much more proficient than you and me when it comes to, as you will see, when it comes to um, going onto the net, isn't it? And so another thing is about reading. It's very, very important to make students read in class. If you give them a text, if you're talking about the poem, let them read it first silently. Perhaps if it's a very elementary level, you read it to them and then you ask somebody else to read. And when they read, that could be the time when you correct a pronunciation, when you drill them into pronouncing, when you make them underline a word and tell them, okay, what is the meaning of this word? What is the synonym? Come on, give me some more synonyms for these words. Give them antonyms. Tell them in class, as you will see. Okay. And as I said over here, this is not only how you will teach them better pronunciation. I've given you tips, strategies, but you can also, as you will see, do what afterwards you could have a kind of a group activity where these children could be made to talk. Now, let's not say, okay, we are teaching children, for example, in commerce. Okay, now, or you're teaching a very elementary level. Let me tell you that I'm giving you an example of my daughter. I mean, she also, you know, she has developed modules to teach, for example, mothers of children who are in school. Most of these mothers are maids. Yes, hello. Most of these mothers are maids, but they have now what we call in our, I mean, if you take it that way, what we call situational English. Situational English. What do we do in situational English? What would these mothers do? Just teach them a salutation, good morning. Teach them how to talk on the phone. These modules have been created. A very beautiful module which really touched me and which I have been doing with my the maintenance staff in college is I try to do it like this way also is, for example, I mean, many of these so-called, many of our helpers, their children are in good schools. So why don't we teach them how to go for a parent-teacher meeting, how to say good morning, good afternoon, may I come in, how is my daughter doing? Why don't we just teach them another simple thing, how to go to a bank, how to open a bank account, write a simple note, a simple application? We could do this. If you're teaching business communication, you know all those strategies, give them the vocabulary which is needed for accounts. If they are students from science, try and build that up and give them vocabulary which will enrich, the particular stream where they are in. If they are students of, as you will say, BMM, if they are doing, for example, journalism, mass media, give them that particular vocabulary that is needed. We only have to give them the push. We have to only generate the interest. We have to, number one, as I said, teach them how to teach speaking, make them speak, say that it is, and I still do this in class, when I say you are honors students, you have to only speak in English. So you know what I do? I say, if you speak in Hindi, well, you come on, bring me, and we have a little kitty. Come on, put one toffee into it, just a 1 rupee toffee. And we collect that. And at the end of the session, we have toffees and we have chocolates and then we have a party. So what does it do? It motivates them. It makes them then listening. Tell them about the apps that are available. Are you getting it? Tell them how to read, correct their pronunciation, involve them in group activities. Ask in group activities if you put them into groups or if you put them into pairs. Now, if you put them into pairs to speak, you can pretend and tell them, okay, you are a person wanting to say, let's say, book a ticket. Imagine that you want to book a ticket and imagine that the other person is a person at the ticket counter. Make them develop, first make them write it. Obviously, they won't be able to speak extempo. Let them write it, let them practice it. 5 sentences each. We have to see the situation. You have to see the level of the student. You have to know what's your objective. And after you finish this, you can give certain questions, simple questions, if you've made them listen to a video or an audio, simple questions, because remember, many of our children want to go abroad. So they are sitting for IELTS. And for IELTS, remember, listening is very, very important. So we have to develop the skill of reading, listening. And once they have listened to it, they have talked amongst themselves, and they have exchanged notes. Now, whatever they've talked, you have to go around. But at the end, you could make them write and then make them write something. Write a simple dialogue, write a slogan, okay? Make a particular, for example, if you're good at cartoon, make a cartoon and put a blurb there, share it. There are so many different ways which we can think, and then perhaps there are some of them, and believe me, there are many, as I told you, many young children who say that they are published writers and poets. So they are definitely some of them. You have to cater, as I'm telling you, to the very elementary, and you have to also cater to those who are brilliant. And you have so many strategies and you don't have to work. Everything is available on the net. You can give them the spell bee, you can give them crossword, you can give them quizzes, you can make your own videos. You know, I mean, I am now, as you will see, gray haired, but I have in this particular lockdown learned how to make my videos. And these videos, we now have a digital learning center in Sophia College. We have to upload it over there. So if I, at my particular age, could do something and learn something, I'm sure you could also do that. Another very simple thing which I have done in our department there is we have a readers club. So we ask students to read particular novels, and then we just give them a 5 minutes and say, you know, tell us something about the novel. So other students also learn, they hear, but at the same time, they are inspired to read, and at least they read something else. We are lucky because we are an autonomous college, so we have CP, class performance, marks in our hand, and we have marks for attendance. That's a different thing. But this is what we are doing. And last thing before I wind up, I know I'm 1 minute above that. I know that we also have a movie club. This is also to tell you that we've been taking girls for movies and they love it. We book the whole hall. We take them, we ask them to write a movie review. We have a club, the literary club in Sofia is called Athenium. We have a club, so they write a movie review and we give prizes and certificates, and that's what matters to children. So, well, I've tried to share with you some of the things that we can do. And most of all, as teachers, we should remember that it's our students who matter. And I think the best thing for a teacher is to see your students doing brilliantly, because after all, a teacher is a bridge. And the student must pass over that bridge, must pass over that rung, okay, and go to a higher level. And with that, I end my talk. I hope I have been able to put across my views. Thank you very much for this invitation. And I hand you over to Ma'am Mohita now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sandra Lee, ma'am.
Yes,
from the entire team of this faculty development program. Now I invite all the participants to make any queries or intervention if they have any.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am just looking at the chat box. At the chat box.
If there is any intervention to be made, please come forward.
Thank you so much,
it has
all of you. Thank you so much. I can see many of my students there, and I'm so thrilled to see so many of you.
It was absolutely engrossing. One of our participant, Neeta Mathur, has written, I am transported to my college days. So ma'am, your address has been truly very brainstorming and inspiring to all of us. The way you have touched upon the various aspects of teaching English language as well as literature is remarkably interesting, and it has infused a new vision and energy in the teachers listening to you to go back to their classrooms with more wow and orientation. I'm sure your words will stay for long in the teachers of English here. Thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing your precious time with us and opening various vistas for the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, one and all, and a very big thank you to all the wonderful things that you've said. And I hope all of you, my students, continue with that particular, as you will see. Thank you.
Definitely, ma'am. There have been so many of your students here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Your chat box is filled with complimentary comments, as you can see. And
I am just going to go back to that.
By your knowledge and your experience and your way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So shall I mute myself now?
Network stable.
Hello. Sorry, can I talk to you? Can I talk to you later in the evening? I have a webinar going on. I'll call you back.
स्टार्टिंग पे लिए क्या बीच में आ रहा है ना आवाज नहीं आ रही क्या म्यूट कर दो फिर ये म्यूट कर दो फिर सुन जाए शायद Am I audible to you, Anil sir?
You are not audible.
You are not audible, sir. I can't listen to your voice.
Ma'am, you are audible. You can start, please.
You are audible now. Should I start?
Yes,
Should I?
please.
Could not just I couldn't listen to you because it was mute. Can I start my lecture? Am I visible to you, sir?
Yes, you are audible, ma'am.
And visible also?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Anilji. All dear organizers and participants, the respected principal of GCA, head of the department in today's program's coordinator, Dr. Manju Sharma, very dear Anilji, Sanjanaji, and all other members of the department. Previously, we have listened to Madam Sandra's lecture, where she is mentioning some skills of listening, reading, writing. These skills hone the skills of students, and some other skills are also there, which help the students to learn language. Today, my attempt is to teach students language through literature, and I am basing myself on stylistics.
Now we share screen.
To talk of stylistics, stylistics is a branch of linguistics which studies style in a scientific way, in a systematic way, concerning the manners, the linguistic features of different varieties of language at different levels. And I am just going to begin with some poems, some pieces of poems. Before that, I am coming to stylistics, a short introduction to that. Stylistics in the study of linguistic features at a literary text is at 3 levels. These things affect the meaning of the poem. First is at the phonological level, then at lexical level and syntactical level. So stylistics proves to be a bridge between language and literature. Dear participants, you all know literature is helped by language, and all the writers take the help of the language to write literature. Before that, before writing came into existence, there was oral literature. In India, it was called Shruti. First there was Shruti, then Smriti, then Vedas. So literature has been very old, but writing came into existence after that. So language is helping the literature, and literature is helping language in the way that it is making language very popular through its way of writing, through its feelings. It is giving language which is only a skeleton, life with the feelings of the writers. So logical and scientific understanding of the literary text is made possible by tools and methods of linguistics. Linguistics is a bridge between language and literature. Literary works are foregrounding their own linguistic status, drawing attention to how rather than to what. Dear participants, we know that there are 2 things, manner and matter. In literature, manner is the only important thing, because matter may be very insignificant, but it depends upon the writer how to make that thing very important. We can take the example of John Donne, Sunrising, which is a very simple thing. It is made such a special thing by John Donne that we read the text again and again. So stylistics unravels the mysteries in the syntax of the text in the way a critic does, a linguist does. Stylistics involves close study of literary texts, and its chief objectives are to enable the readers to make meaningful interpretation of the text. First thing is stylistics is giving tools to the readers how to interpret the text, because there might be many more meanings in one line, in one stanza, the lurking meanings are so just solved. They are brought to the surface by stylistics only. And it also helps to expand in students the knowledge, the awareness of the language, and to make them more competent through language practice. And that is done by foregrounding. Dear participants, foregrounding is a very important tool. It brings to surface the things which a writer wants to focus. Foregrounding is, in some pieces of writing, there are some informations which are given prominence in relation to other informations. So the prominent information is said to be foregrounded, while the rest of the information is subordinated or backgrounded. Foregrounding can be divided into two parts. It can be through deviation, it can be through parallelism. So what is deviation? Deviating oneself, deviating from the rules of grammar at phonological level, at syntactic level, and at semantic level. So deviation we can call to be a type of foregrounding through which use of deviant structure is there when the writer is deviating from the rules of normal language, grammar, lexis, and phonology. The second type is parallelism. As the very title shows, parallel structures are there. In parallelism, there are parallel constructions in which one structure is, it seems to be equivalent to parallel to another. So they seem to be foregrounded if they produce extra regularity in the text. Dear participants, we can take the example of the rape of the lock, where parallelism has been used very much. Parallelism may be focusing when the writer wants to use irony. So there are one parallel structure is very high and one is very low. We can take the example of the rape of the lock, in which Pope is saying, whether the nymph shall break Diana's law or some frail China jar shall receive a flaw. So on one side, there is virginity, we can say, and other, on other hand, there is China jar. So it is heightening the effect of the writer wants to produce. This deviation may be at many levels. Deviation may be at lexical level, and lexical deviation is that deviation where lexemes are, the use of the words is very deviated. The words are used in a special way. Then there is semantic deviation, in which meaning is already brought through very simple words. When simple words are heightened, they are just, we can say, focused, and they are giving some special meaning. And phonological deviation is that deviation where sounds are producing music. And dear participants, we can see that every poem, every piece of poetry is phonological deviation, because that poetry is not poetry which is not able to produce music in it. So every piece of writing, especially in verse, is said, can be said to be phonological deviation, because the poet is focusing on some, we can say, some sounds, some words which are producing a musical combination. Then we are coming to morphological deviation. In morphological deviation, formation, new words are produced. We can say neologisms there, because we can take the example of Shakespeare. He used the words in a special way, and coining of new words in his name is in thousands. Then there is grammatical deviation. In grammatical deviation, rules of grammar are broken, they are neglected, and dialectical deviation is also doing the same. Linguistic deviation is the use of old words, archaic words are used, or some, we can take the example of some new writing in which linguistic deviation is at its height. And in punctuation deviation, the rules of punctuation are broken, because Sometimes capital letter is not used, and sometimes there are no commas and there are no full stops, periods are not used. So punctuational deviation is also heightening the effect of the poetry. Now, dear participants, I have taken a piece of writing by W.B. Yeats, Sailing to Byzantium. Sailing to Byzantium, we won't go to the, we can say, background of the poem, because we have to focus on the text itself, and we have to find out. We can give this exercise to the students in the class of language. We can give them the piece of the poem. I have taken only one stanza because of the shortage of time, and we shall focus, we shall ask the students to find out lexical words, simple lexical words, and they will think, they will read the poem again and again, and they will just the monotonous language will be made interesting to them, because they will be picking simple words, and in this stanza they will find out country, old pen, young, song, fish, flesh, fowl, summer, bone, music, and intellect are some of the simple lexical words. Again, we shall ask them to pick complex words, and we shall make it clear to them that simple words are those words in which one morpheme is there, and complex words are those words in which root plus suffix is there, and they will find out suffix arms, birds, trees, generations, siege, begotten, dies, sensual, monuments, and unitching. These are some of the complex words. We shall ask the students to find compound words, a mixture of two words, two simple words. They will find out very easily when we are making them clear. Old pen, Simon Falls, summer long, and whatever are some of the compound words in this piece of writing. Dear participants, the next task given to them may be compound complex words. And in compound complex words, they will be finding that two words plus affixes are there, suffix and prefix. Trying generations, Simon Falls, mackerel clouded seas, and sensual music. So we will also tell them how to find out difference between inflectional affix and derivational affixes. Inflectional in the form of grammatical affixes, and derivational when they are used with lexical words. Static verbs. Now comes the turn of verb, and we shall tell them to find out difference between static verb and dynamic verb. In this stanza, they will easily find out we shall make them clear that static verbs are those verbs in which state of affairs are very, these meaning is in a state of affair. The status is already told and no action is there. And we can very easily, they will be finding out in this stanza, dies, caught, and neglect are some of the static verbs. When it comes to the dynamic verbs, they will very easily find out, because the verbs which denote some action, the moment we tell them to find out the verbs which are denoting some action, they will very easily find out comment, begotten, and born, because birth also, a child when it is coming to this world, it has to make a lot of struggle. So born also comes in the category of dynamic verbs. Dear participants, then we can ask the students the grammatical analysis of the stanza. We can ask them to pick out nouns, both abstract and common nouns in the poem. And they will very easily find out country, man, arms, birds, trees, generations, song, Simon, falls, mackerel, seas, fish, flesh, summer, music, monuments, and intellect. And you have asked them to find out abstract nouns, and they will very easily find out music, intellect, and summer, which the things which can't be perceived. When it comes to cohesion, we can ask the students to find out cohesion of lexemes in the poem. We have to make that clear to them what is cohesion, the presence of linguistic link in a poem is. We have to make them clear that intertextual relation of a grammatical and lexical kind, which knit the parts of a text together in a complete unit of discourse, this conveys the meaning of a text as a whole is cohesion. Cohesion may be at morphological level, at syntactic level, or it may be at semantic level. So cohesion in words is begotten, born, old, dying, dies, song, music, generations, fish, sea, fowl, tree. And semantically equivalent words are, we can also call it coupling, the coupling of words, dying and dies, begotten and born, song and music. Dear participants, when it comes to grammatical analysis of the stanza, we will ask them to find out adjectives, adverbs, and they will very easily find out old, dying, young, sensual, unaging, adverbs in one another's arms, at song, summer long, caught in music. Then we will ask them to find out foregrounding and parallelism, and deviation from semantic structure is there. Those dying generations add their song. We have to make the students very clear that when generations are dying, how can they sing song? So dying generations can't sing a song. So this sentence is wrong at semantic level. And the young in arms, birds in trees, parallelism is there. Youngs in arms and birds in trees, young ones. People, young people, the status, the condition of young people is brought to birds. It shows animal existence. It also shows the carefree nature of the people where Yeats is living. That's why he wants to go to Byzantium, because they are leading only a materialistic life. No spiritual aspect is there. No importance to art is there. That's why he's leaving the place. Then we have to make them clear neologism, forming of new words. And here summer long, summer has been used, noun has been used, and a new adverbial has been made. It highlights the quick passing of youth. Summer passes very quickly in India. It is very hot, climate is very hot, and summer nowadays is showing its effect. And winter has past and summer is coming, but in future, in Western countries, summer is thought to be a very pleasant season. It highlights the quick passing of youth. Syntactic deviation, when we come to syntactic deviation, caught in sensual music, those dying generations, unaging intellect. If we go to the text, we see that this whole of the sentence is deviating from the rule of syntax, from the rule of syntax is not in a proper way, and the adverbs, that and those, these are showing alienation. These are showing distance. When something is near, then that and those are showing that Yeats is not mixing himself with these things. That he has a sense of alienation from these things. That's why he wants to leave. Alliteration is also a very good form of foregrounding, where the sounds are given importance. They are foregrounded, and here in the alliteration has been used. Fish, flesh, fowl. The initial sound F is repeated again and again. Begotten, born, B is repeated. Unaging intellect. In assonance is also, the repetition of vowel sound is also there. Now, fowl, old, begotten, born. And syntactical deviation is there. Very first sentence is arrested. Second sentence is long, covering 6 lines, but is released. Sentence is arrested when it is not complete, and when it is released, it is giving, it is complete. Dear participants, the last comes phonological form. Phonology, we have to make them clear how some sounds are, when they are dominant, when they are foregrounded, what kind of effect they are having in giving out the meaning of the poem. M, which is voiced and bilabial and nasal. B is again stressed, voiced, bilabial, plosive. F, voiceless labial fricative, and S, voiceless alveolar fricative. D, voiced D, voiced alveolar plosive, and vowel sounds E, A, O, I, O, U. Plosives are giving earthly quality. Sound is providing mystery and sound. For is showing monotony of the talk. Front vowels have sharpness. Back vowels are having calmness, and central vowels are providing neutrality in the poem. The other piece of writing which I have taken is this bread I break from Dylan Thomas. I would like to, because I shall first read this poem, very short poem is there, then we will come to the analysis of the poems, linguistic analysis. This bread I break was once the oat, the wine upon a foreign tree plunged in its fruit. Man in the day or wind at night laid the crops low, broke the grapes' joy. Once in this wine, the summer blood knocked in the flesh that decked the wine. Once in this bread, the oat was merry in the wind. Man broke the sun, pulled the wind down. This flesh you break, the blood you let, make desolation in the wind. For oat in grapes born of the sensual root and sap, my wine you drink, my bread you snap. We are first coming to the verb form in the poem. Break was in, laid, low, broke, knocked in, jacked, was, broke, pulled, down, break, let, make, were, born, drink, and snap are some of the verb forms. Semantic patterns suggest violence and destruction. Man is accused by the speaker to have disturbed the equilibrium of nature by his violent and selfish nature. Luxem's wine and bread show the religious theme of Christ. Now we are coming to lexical group of verbs. Break, broke, laid, low, pulled down, snap, plunged. These are some of the lexical group. Adverbials of time and place have been used. The adverbials are once, upon tree, in fruit, in day and night, once in flesh, once in wine, once in bread, in wind, in vain. Noun agency in the poem is man. Man is agency and noun. Wind is also agency and noun, and you is also agency and noun. Tree, oat, wine, grape, wind, flesh, sun, and bread are target of violence. Wind, we are showing to be a target of violence because wind is just a nourisher. It is giving life to a man. It sustains life in a man. If it is used, it means violence has been used against wind also, because nature is showing its stormy, its violent form only when man is playing with it, when man is playing violence with it. Otherwise, nature has one other form, one other nature that is calm. Division of lexical groups in the poem. Crop, oat, and bread come to bread lexical group. Tree, grape, and wine, two type. Wine is wine lexical group, and man, flesh, blood, and wine come in man lexical group. Sound group in the poem. Phonemes, stops, and affricates have been used. Sounds per, bird, turka, g, connote violence. Sounds of fricatives for, were, sir, th. This is wrong, dear participants, it must be th. Connote anger and fear. Foregrounding in the poem. At phonological level, monosyllabic words in fusion of consonants give slow-moving effect. Consonants, consonant clusters with plosives for, the, pa, express point actions. Alliteration and assonance give musical quality to the poem. At lexical level, abundance of simple words is there. Simple words show the simple and holy theme, the simple way of presentation, and there is syncretism in the poem with you. You may be the listener, you may be for mankind also, and there is homophone, wine and wine, when orthographic word is orthographic words are different, but sound is the same, then comes homophone, and coupling is there, break, broke, you, and once. At syntactical level, parallelism has been used by the poet. Man in the day or wind at night, laid the crop low, broke the grapes' joy. Man broke the sun, pulled the wind down. My wine you drink, my bread you snake. And dear participants, this kind of parallelism is highlighting the effect the poet wants to give. He is again and again highlighting how man is the enemy of nature and man is playing with nature. And man was enemy of man. Man was enemy of God also. Jesus Christ was betrayed by his own friends. Repetition of there is a repetition in the poem and lexeme, once in this, once in this. This lexeme has been repeated again and again. It causes melancholic effect because once in this is again and again emphasizing the pain of the poet, and ellipsis is there in the poem. This wine upon a foreign tree. Ellipsis is there when some word is missing because it is there is deviation in syntax, and was is missing in this line. This wine was upon a foreign tree, and here was is missing, so ellipsis is there. At grammatical level, deviation in syntax is there. My wine you drink, my bread you snap. These lines are in inverted order for emphasize. Inverted order in the sense that the line must have been you drink my wine you drink. So you see how every poem is deviating from the rules of grammar, and juxtaposition of past and present is there, of course, because by highlighting upon the past, he in the last line, he is coming to the present, my wine you drink, my bread you snap. So from past, he's coming to the present. So in tense order also there is deviation, first present, from past when you are coming to the present, then it shows that the history is always repeating itself, and man should be cautious. He should not play with nature. Dear participants, I have taken one more poem. Please keep patience, and I will very soon finish because this is we are just about to complete this program is about to be completed, and from last 6 days you have been listening. Listening is a very difficult thing for teachers, especially. I am coming first because I am running very fast to complete it in time. I'm asking Anilji, have I time? Anilji? Lexical analysis of the poem. Repetition of affix is there in the poem.
You wanted to ask something?
Yeah, I was asking, should I continue because am I not just lagging behind?
Ma'am, you can take minutes. Please try to wind up.
How much time have I, sir? How much time is there?
It's almost there, ma'am. Take 5 minutes, please.
5 minutes, okay.
5 minutes more.
I will try to complete myself. I will.
Yes,
At
please.
lexical analysis, we are going to start with the repetition of affix in un and d and re. 3 types of affixes are, and these are suffixes. Affix is a mixture of suffix and prefix. These are prefixes. Un, d, and re are used in the poem in maximum. Un is expressing negation, unreal, undone, unstoppered, unheard, unshaven, unreproved, undid, undesired. D, complementary to un. It serves to evoke a sense of deprivation and negation. Demobilized, demotic, demobbed, departed. Dear participants, D and un and D, these prefixes are used in first 4 sections. I should name them: the burial of the dead, a game of chess, and third one death by water, fourth one death by water, third, and fifth one, what the thunder said. So in the fifth part, prefix re is used. So in the fifth part, there is a ray of hope, because there is lightning, there is thunder, there is shower of rain in fifth part only. First four part, I did not explain the poem by Eliot, because all of you, this is the most important point of 20th century, and all of you must have read it again and again while teaching the students. And while coming to the fifth part, which has a ray of hope, because there is sterility, there is aridity in today's environment, and the hope is there when we are going to Upanishads. Eliot was a well-read Sanskrit scholar, so he had read those Upanishads. He's giving a reference from Upanishad, and he's saying that when you are giving something, when you are controlling your senses, to give, to sympathize and to control. And here in the fifth section only, re is repeated again and again: reverberation, retract, revive, and responded. When we are coming to the lexical analysis of the poem, lexical set of time, place, and common items are there. Time in the burial of the dead is April, winter, summer, for an hour, morning, evening, these days, hour of 9, last year, this year. A game of chess as tonight, never, now, remember, even, at 4, when, now, antique, and good night. Third section, fire sermon, till, end, long, year time, weekend, foretold, foresee. Death by water, section 4, once, fortnight. And fifth section, after, now, are, now, endless, always. I have selected some of them, and the rest of the these I have left because it is because of shortage of time, and it was not possible to present all of the verbs in slides. So I have given a few of them. While coming to the lexical analysis, lexical set of time, place, and common items is there. Place, earth, mountain, pub, garden, riverside, street, and prison. These are the places which have been highlighted. While coming to the syntactic analysis of the poem, foregrounding has been used. Foregrounding is there through deviatic syntactic patterning and syntactic ambiguity. Syntactic repetition and deviation is there. All the text is chaotic and unsystematic, and the text itself is giving the theme of the poem. How theme is the chaotic and unsystematic life of modern wastelanders. So syntax, Wasteland is the most proper poem to highlight how matter and the manner of the poem are totally in tune with each other. Hurry up, please, it is time. Hurry up, please, it is time. Syntactic repetition is there in the pub. It is time. Hurry up, please, it is time. Unreal. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Jug, jug, jug. Veelala, veelala. Nothing. Burning, burning. I can connect nothing with nothing. People, my humble people, who expect nothing. He who is living is now dead. We who are living are now dying with little patience. When we are coming to phonological analysis, sound on lexical level of poetic structure, sound of morphemes, and nightingale, children, maternal lamentation, voices of empty cisterns, pleasant whining of mandolin, bells, fiddling on woman's long hair, record on gramophone, sound of women's speech, sound of human speech. So some sounds are at lexical level, because these are mentioned in the poem: sound of human speech, thunder, water, dry stone, and the sound of the insect, and sound of horns, of course. We are coming now to the phonological pattern of the poem. Repetition of sounds. Musical quality is provided by the repetition of sounds. Lilacs, land, the first initial sound is repeated. Root, rain, winter, warm, summer, surprise, forgetful, feeling. And vowel sounds are repeated: y, a, ow, I, a, u. Front vowels are providing sharpness to the poem, back vowels provide calmness, and central vowels neutrality, and mixed out is giving to the poem a regulated harmony. Phonological pattern, again, we are coming to plosives, fricatives, nasal, and palatal sounds are dominant. Mixed voice and voiceless sounds keep balance in the poem with imagination and reality. Syntactic pattern of the poem, I had told you earlier, also chaotic and unsystematic sentences have no relation with each other, because Ezra Pound was given to edit the poem and he reduced it to 1/3. As a result, you can yourself understand what can be when we are taking the 2/3 of a story and what will be left. And it became a very appropriate weapon to express the modern life, which is very chaotic, and sentences have no relation with each other. Because when Eliot wrote this poem, he did not provide in the first volume, he did not provide any notes to the poem, but because of the complexity of the poem, he had to provide notes. Syntactic ambiguity is there, and syntactic repetition is there. At grammatical, abstract nouns are there: memory, desire, sunlight, apple, winter, summer, city, and thunder. Concrete nouns are there: land, root, river, lilacs, earth, snow, shower, mountain. Verbs, both the verbs, I am giving just some examples: Captain, surprised, and dynamic works: coming, stopped, breeding, mixing, stirring, and feeding. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. Thanks to all the organizers also.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Rajni, for your discourse on teaching literature through linguistics and stylistics. It was a very informative presentation. And friends, if you have any queries, doubts, confusions, clarifications, or observations, now is the time. You're most welcome to do that. You can even post your questions in the chat box or ask directly if you wish to do so. Well, there seems to be no queries, but very complimentary comments in the chat box. Nice presentation, impressive presentation, wonderful presentation, brilliant presentation. So, well, ma'am, thank you for a very enlightening lecture and for deliberating on the linguistic features and their arrangement in the text, and for introducing the tools of style and their application analysis of poetry. Thank you for elaborating on how stylistics proves to be a bridge between language and literature, and how it unravels the mysteries in the syntax of the text. Thank you for illustrating the concepts through examples from the texts of Yeats, T.S. Eliot, and Dylan Thomas. Thank you once again for that very comprehensive and exhaustive discourse. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now we move on to the next speaker, Dr. Sarita Jain. Dr. Sarita Jain is an associate professor in the Department of English, Dean College for Women. She has a teaching experience of 25 years and has to her credit around 32 articles published in various national and international journals. She has attended several international conferences and seminars and also presented papers in these. She has also authored 1 book and edited 5. She has been awarded postdoctorate at the Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi in 2015, and completed the same in 2007.
हेलो, हाँ हाँ, कुछ आ ही नहीं रहा। डॉक्टर विभा तिवारी। हेलो हेलो, हाँ, फिर ये स्क्रीन पे हाँ 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 हाँ, अच्छा, पिन वीडियो, पिन, हाँ आ गया सर, आ गया। हाँ, ओके ओके, हाँ। Honorable Sandra ma'am, my mentor, the organizing committee, and dear participants. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Audible, ma'am.
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay. My topic is teaching poetry and language through literature. Literature is the expression of life in words of truth and beauty. It is the written record of man's spirit, of his thoughts, emotions, aspirations. It is the history and the only history of the human soul. Literature is the result of creative faculty of human mind. It is an artistic, pleasant, and attractively deviated form of language to express one's ideas, feelings, and experience. Thus, literature is an art which mirrors the society out of which it emerges. It stretches students' imaginations, widens the insights, deepens the experiences, and heightens their awareness. The genres of literature are poetry, drama, essay, novel, and story. Among the genres, poetry is the oldest and the richest genre of literature. What is poetry? Wordsworth defines poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotions recollected in tranquility. It means poetry is the expression of emotion and imagination. Poetry originally comes from Greek root poien, meaning to make. A poet is a creator and poetry is a creation. Poetry is a kind of verbal art. Eliot says poetry is not a turning loose of emotions, but an escape from emotion. It is not the expression of personality, but an escape from personality. Poetry is the automatic outcome of human mind. The language of poetry is different from prose. It follows the prosodic features of language. The poetic language is more literary, unique, and complex than the language of prose. The deviated form of language is used in poetry, which is out of grammatical rules and regulations. Poetry is a conventional form of art, a special kind of symbolic language which is organized by its unusually rich use of such features of language as rhythm, pitch, meter, and connotation, where one can find aesthetic pleasure and knowledge. Broadly speaking, poetry aims at providing pleasure to the readers and instructing them. Teaching poetry seems to be complex than other genres of literature. Poetry provides teachers with a special tool, a tool that can be broken down and evaluated in parts. a tool that can be used to teach many literacy skills. Now there are different types of poetry. Epic. Epic is a heroic story consisting of myths, legends, folktales, historical events of great wars and significant changes, such as Paradise Lost by Milton, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Ballad. Ballad is a song that tells a story, and originally it had a musical accompaniment to a dance. It is divided into two broad types, that folk or traditional ballad and the literary ballad. Then elegy is a mournful poem lamenting someone's death, such as Milton's Lycidas, Shelley's Adonis. An ode, it is a dignified and elaborately structured poems. The odes by Greek, they are very famous, as we all know. Ode on a Grecian urn, ode on melancholy. And the lyric is another form of poetry which refers to any fairly short poem, just as the two coy mistress, oh my love is like a red, red rose. Then sonnet. Sonnet, it is derived from the Italian word sonato. And there are two types of sonnet, the Petrarchan sonnet or the Italian, and the English or Shakespearean sonnet. Romance is a verse narrative which was popular in the Middle Ages, that is 5th century to 15th century, and it is about legendary, supernatural, or amorous subjects and characters. Narrative verse is a poem that tells a story. Ballad and epics belong to this category. Now, benefits of studying poetry. Poetry builds vocabulary. Uh, Students get exposed to words they have not heard before, and they listen to them in context. The teacher should discuss new terms with students and ask them to point out the ones they hear for the first time. This exercise provides a venue for English language learners to learn and build language. Not only do students hear new words, but they are also learning how words are chosen for effect and to create imagery. Poetry often contains words that rhyme for effect. Students can learn about phonics and letter sounds by listening for and locating rhyming words. A poem can be used to teach sentence structure, parts of speech, and many grammar skills. Poetry is like literature, is like having a telescope that sees directly into the minds of people around the globe and across the timeline of history. Poetry, in one respect, is a time travel machine. We also study poetry so that we might learn something new about ourselves as human beings. Every time you approach a poem and every time you reread a poem, a new emotion, attitude, idea, or relationship is revealed to you. In a world where communication is instantaneous, poetry possesses a unique power. Some messages from a poem might be instantly revealed to you, but the true joy of studying poetry is that you keep going back to the same poem over and over again and find something new each time. It boosts creativity. You develop your creative skill when you write a poem, and it opens the door to a rich network of contexts. It improves verbal skills and memory. The immediate benefits of reading poetry are improvements to vocabulary and verbal dexterity. Poetry acquaints the reader with unfamiliar terms and encourages verbal analysis. Most poems should not be read in the straightforward manner of prose. The reader must place his own emphasis upon keywords and decode syntax without obvious structure. It develops critical thinking. Poetry improves critical thinking by forcing a reader to think. In great poetry, meaning is not obvious or one dimensional. Deciphering poetry is an active practice rather than the passive engagement encouraged with prose. Readers of poetry are more likely than non readers to analyze information for bias and viewpoint. It develops empathy and insight. The most remarkable power of literature is its ability to unite reader and writer across time and cultural boundaries. As condensed literature, poetry offers these benefits in an impactful way. Poetry triggers memories and emotions in its readers. This connection between universal emotions and personal experience encourages the development of empathy. A reader might have no practical conception of what life was during the Elizabethan era in England. However, Shakespeare's sonnets with the universal themes of love and longing can bridge the gap of centuries and inject a whiff of the 17th century into the modern life. Poetry encourages engagement with other forms of art. Poetry is an excellent introduction to the arts. Poems typically don't require a lot of time to read, nor are they difficult to find free online. Once someone feels comfortable with poetry, they are more likely to engage with other arts. The appreciation of any art requires the same critical thinking skills and emotional awareness. Poetry also helps in understanding different perspectives. Teaching and learning from poetry can help students respect and understand the viewpoints of people across the globe. Whether it be through spoken, word, or written, it allows both students and adults to express emotions in a controlled way. Forms of poetry. Poetry can be characterized as either formally structured, which means it follows a pre-arranged rhyme and meter, or free verse, which means there is no preset structure and the author arranges the words according to his or her own aesthetics. Free verse poetry is often more experimental and sometimes even deliberately obscure, as many authors seek to reproduce the feelings of confusion evoked by living in modern society. Language of poetry. It is a creative piece of writing generally composed in words. In the past, poetry was written in the verse, but now it is written in verse as well as non-verse. Since aesthetic satisfaction is related to poetry, so the language of poetry is special and different from the language of any text or daily use of the language. The poetic language consists rhyming words, rhythm, meter, diction, tone, music. These make the poem systematic and sweet. It has its special rhetorical devices like simile, metaphor, irony, paradox, and alliteration and assonance. The poet uses special types of diction, selecting appropriate words to write a poem. Poetry differs linguistically from the unusual or standard form of language. It recognizes syntax, invests its own vocabulary, freely mixes registers, and creates its own punctuation. Poetry draws creatively on a full range of archaism and dialects and generates new vivid metaphor. It patterns sounds and orders rhythm. Poetry has been described a deviation from the norms of language. It teaches the readers that language may not be quite rigidly governed by rules as we think. It is pedagogical, useful, and necessary to provide students with idealized language rules. Poetry is one of the literary texts in which the words are used specially to express the writer's emotions, feelings, and thoughts. Features of poetry. Now, rhythm refers to strong, regular, repeated patterns of sounds or movements. Rhyming scheme is the main feature of poetry. Generally, poetry is composed in verse. To make the verse systematic, the rhyming pattern must be used. Deviation of linguistic norm. The linguistic norm is completely deviated in poetry. The poetic language does not follow the grammatical rules. Diction, it refers to the selection of appropriate words in poetry. Music and tune are the very important features of poetry. And alliteration and assonance, they are used for emphasis in the poem. Then the poetic language is unique and figurative. The readers only find this type of language while reading poetry. Meditation. The main purpose of poetry is meditation. While writing or reading a poem, one should be serious in thinking and imagination. Heart is the area of poetic origination, whereas mind is the place of intellectual poetry. Poetry deals with emotions and feelings, not with intellect, though neoclassical poetry was philosophical and or intellectual. It enhances language skills. Literature is an indispensable tool for teaching and learning of a language. In addition to this, literature has always been an important resource for teaching and learning of language. It provides variety of inputs. In learning literature, students come in contact with different varieties of language, cultures, lifestyles, and style of expressing and interpreting the literary text. Literature develops language skills in students. The students listen to different texts, cassettes, speak more about the subject matter in an interesting way, read more text and write appreciation, analyze and interpret the text. As a result, language skills develop naturally. Among the literary genres used in language teaching, poetry is one of frequent appearance. It serves not only a model of literature, but also a model for teaching the skills of language in an effective way. It also gives pleasure to the readers and gives them new models in their life to follow. When the students read poetry, it improves the vocabulary, sentence formation, syntax, fluency, and the creative skill. The genre of poetry not only improves the communication skills but also improves the core skills such as listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Poetry is language used in particular ways which involves rhyme, rhythm, and meter. Poetry can paint powerful, sharp pictures using images and emotive language which stimulates senses. It has become favorite tools for language teachers due to their short length, perfectly suitable for single classroom lesson, the peculiar structure, and the linguistic characteristic features. The evocative character of poetry, its imagery, its appeal to feelings and personal experience make it very interesting and enjoyable for the second or foreign language learners. The fact that poetry deviates from normal language, has some unusual ways of ordering words, imaginative meanings to words, or combined words in a musical, non-ordinary way, and style deviation makes poetry important and useful in language classroom. The language teacher should exploit the deviances of poetic language in order to arise the language awareness of the learners towards the way on which language can be adapted or changed to fulfill different communicative purposes. Now, pedagogical processing of a poem at four distinct levels: at the level of sound, at the level of lineage, syntax, punctuation, at the level of meanings, at the level of theoretical perspective. We have to process the poem at these four distinct levels: sound, whether it is rhyme, rhythm, alliteration, whether the poetry is metaphysical, classical, or romantic, and syntax refers to the word order and the way in which it works with grammatical structures, and theoretical structure, how the poems can be structured with rhyming lines and meter, rhythm lines based on syllabic beats. The teacher can use two kinds of strategies or a combination of both for teaching poetry. It is activity-based approach, that is integrated approach, or a question-based approach in which we question the students and we elicit answers from them. Now, teaching poem encourages the learners to read the poem in a particular way. And teaching of poetry follows a systematic way of classroom activities like stimulating students' cultural and historical background of the poem, helping students towards the interpretation of the poem, and follow-up activities. The learner should understand the rhythm used in the poem. They should be able to read the poem properly and do the activities related to the poem after they are taught. They should even get encouragement to write poems based on a particular theme. Poetry is the highest form of literary expression. While teaching poems, the teacher should appeal to the emotion of the student. In a poetry class, a student enters a different world. Bringing up poetry in the English language classroom sometimes is hard for the teachers. One of the challenges is the choice of poetry which suits for each student. However, a teacher should be extremely careful while choosing the text that he or she wants to deal with in the classroom. Poetry which will be taught to students should have an appropriate level of complexity that challenge but not intimidate. It includes themes and contents that resonate with students, which encourages discussion between class members, promote emotional responses from the students, and do not require too much teacher-centered model. Moreover, the needs of the students, their motivation, interest, and cultural background should be taken into consideration while selecting a poem for classroom teaching. The poem that is selected should be appropriate in length and of level of students' comprehension. Now, in an integrated approach, that is these are the activities of teaching poetry. Teachers guide the students and also become a participant. In this approach, the classroom activities will be divided into three categories: the pre-reading activities, while reading activities, and post-reading activities. Pre-reading activities are a kind of warming up activities which can provide a forum to elicit from students their feelings and responses to ideas and issues in a prescribed text. While reading activities aim at helping the students to experience the text holistically by developing a fruitful interaction between the text and the readers, post-reading activities encourage students to reflect upon what they have read, and they generate thoughtful discussion on different issues related to both language and literature arising from the text. Since I don't have much time, I'll just go through it. In the pre-reading activities, the teacher should read the poem aloud, and the interest of the students is stimulated. Students discuss or describe the photographs or pictures relevant to the theme of the poem. Then the students, they predict the theme of the poem from its titles or a few key words and phrases in the poem. Then students are asked what they would do and how they would respond if they were in a similar situation. The teacher should provide the necessary historical and cultural background related to the poem. For example, if we are teaching, for example, Let Me Not to the Marriage of True Minds by William Shakespeare, then we should provide the historical background of Elizabethan age, about the Renaissance and Reformation movement prevalent in that age. Then students read and listen to the text about the author's life, which may deepen the understanding about the theme of the poem. The teacher discusses the text about the life of the author, for example, Shakespeare, uh, and then give information about the genre, literary movement, and help students with language of poem, that is metaphorical, symbolical, usual, deviated, connotative. Then, for example, the teacher should tell the student about the metaphor used here in this poem. uh, Ever fixed mark, star, it is the star, and bending sickle, all these things the teacher should help the students with these meaning of words, phrases, grammatical constructions, etc. And while reading activities, the students, they are given a jumbled version of the poem and they are asked to put together, remove certain words from the poem and ask students to fill in the gaps. Teacher asks students to read one verse at a time and try to predict what is coming next. Then students, they underline keywords and then speculate the metaphorical or symbolic meaning. Students answer comprehension questions about the meaning of certain words or phrases of the poem. These are the activities which the teacher should undertake while doing while reading activities. Next is post reading activities, helping students towards the interpretation of the poem. The teacher should help students to interpret the poem. The students are given a series of statements about the possible underlying meaning of the poem and they decide which ones are true or false. Then the teacher should give three interpretations of the poem and ask the students to choose which is the best one. Then advanced learners, they compare the poem with two different translations of it in their own language and choose most satisfactory. Students imagine they are filming the poem. They decide what visual image they provide to each line. That means the students, they have grasped the poem. Next, post-reading activities, and then follow-up activities. Students rewrite the poem in different forms of discourse. Now, after having understood the poem, the students, they write the poem in different forms of discourse. Then students read some other poem by the same author having the similarity. Students write their own poem using original a model, role play or discussion based on theme or subject matter. They resort to discussions with each other or with the teacher and then they enact the poem. Students also discuss the values and world view which either implicitly or explicitly expressed in the poem and ask them whether they agree or not. So they discuss the view, the theme which is expressed in the poem. Now we can give these exercises, like we can give some words and ask students to write the poems, or we can give a poem and ask the student to find out the metaphor. That is a gift. Shall I give myself to you, beloved? My words are like little jars. Thank you. I thank the participants for giving a patient hearing. हेलो, हाँ मैंने खत्म कर दिया, वापस से जूम चल नहीं रहा, पता नहीं क्या प्रॉब्लम। अच्छा पता नहीं वो, पता नहीं दिख ही नहीं रहा, मैं वो कनेक्ट ही नहीं हो पा रही, कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ रही है। हाँ पता नहीं, नहीं मेरे नहीं स्क्रीन शेयरिंग वो कनेक्ट ही नहीं हो पा रहा, कैसे बंद करूं समझ ही नहीं आया। नहीं वो कर तो रही हूँ पर है ना, वो कनेक्ट नहीं हो रहा, वही तो कह रही ना। हाँ कनेक्ट।
Ma'am, I'm connected also, very much connected. You were very much connected, ma'am, and we could see you. Only the screen through which you were delivering the lecture was not tilted properly, so we couldn't have the upper part of your face visible.
Okay.
Now it is visible, and we've got a shot, ma'am.
Okay.
It's perfectly okay, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
Really.
Genuine gratitude for sparing so much time from your busy schedule. We have Mrs. Sandra Lee among us as the chairperson presiding over today's proceedings. I feel honored to invite her to share her precious views on the proceedings of the day. I very humbly invite Mrs. Sandra to bless us with her address.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I would once again, before I begin my sharing my thoughts, I would like to thank the members of the coordinating committee and the principal and all of you for listening patiently to me, and also for all your wonderful comments that you have given. It was very motivating for me, and it's been a pleasure. And I hope that you do get some inspiration, because you are the younger generation and you have to continue. You know, we have to pass on the baton to you. So as I end this valedictory speech, I know that all of you must be, waiting for your lunch. So let me just get my thoughts together. It was so interesting to listen to Ma'am Rajni Sharma, because I was personally reliving my college days when we had the likes of Sir N.K. Jain and Sir J.N. Sharma and Professor Dhameja, who taught us phonetics and linguistics here in Government College. And it was a kind of a revision for me. And thank you, Ma'am Rajni, for your very, very detailed analysis, of the phonological, lexical, syntactical, all the matter that, everything came back, and for analyzing in depth 3 poems and telling us how to go about this. It was indeed a very informative session. And I also, as you will say, as I said, learned something more. And I also got some tips as to what I could do while doing a poem. And listening to Ma'am Sarita, it was a pleasure, as I've already typed over there. Yes, Sarita, I can't imagine that it's been 25 years for you in the teaching. So you can imagine, how long it was when you were in Sofia. And as your teacher, I must say, I'm so proud at the way that you have shaped up. Now, thank you very much once again.
It was wonderful listening to you, ma'am. It was very mesmerizing session. Thank you so much for making me this.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarita. And keep going higher. Yes. Okay. Yes. So, when I was wondering how to address you at this valedictory, dear academicians, scholars, and some of my dear students and colleagues, I, came across this quotation, which I felt was very, very apt. And I would like to, again, ask you to kind of, we could make this a meditative session, and also a session where you could perhaps, think about where you are going. You know, today teaching is not a lost art, but the regard for it is a lost tradition. I repeat, teaching is not a lost art, but the regard for it is a lost tradition. What I mean to say is that I'm sure all of you have got all the caliber, you've got the knowledge, you are into research, you are writing papers, you're doing, as Sarita is doing, postdoctoral studies, you are all there. But it is a sad thing that today teaching is not, as you will say, you know, it's not given that kind of a respect which it was given there. So therefore, why aren't we respected? It is something which should make us think. It should be something which should make us pause as to the reason. We should try to analyze ourselves, and perhaps after this analysis, maybe there will be an epiphany for us, and perhaps we could work on this epiphany and see what is the lacuna, what are the problems, and how we can improve ourselves. Because as I told you, we are living in a world where our students, some of them are definitely much above us and know much, much more. I'm not only talking about, as you will see, their skills, I mean, on the net, etc., and their ability to use ICT technology. But what I am saying is that today, you know, students, you know, if they're paying a fee, they want their money's worth. Because I'm sharing it with you because I feel I've seen the difference in students. You know, when we were young, we were just told, okay, our parents told us, now you go and do this. Okay. And if our parents told us something, we jolly well did it. I remember my father just said that you're an only child, you just sit down and study and you go to GCA. I wanted to go to Mumbai, but there was no question, as you will see, of defying. But today's students are not only aware of the opportunities, they are ambitious, they are independent, they question, they want to know why, and they know everything. So you must have noticed that, number one, today, I'm talking now in particular about Rajasthan. You have noticed, and about India, that many of our good students, and the sad fact is that many of our good students do not fare well in the exams, but they are getting admissions abroad into the best colleges. And so there is a brain drain. We are losing our best talent. I mean, if you've looked at today's paper, you will see that there were at least 12 people from India who were involved in the NASA exploration of Mars. And believe me, they are not only, we think we usually have this particular idea, and I also believe that the people from the South are definitely more into academics, but there were many people who were from UP and from Bihar. So if we always look at these as backward states. So if these children could do it and they could go and become such, you know, stellar performers, I don't see why our students cannot do well. So we have to keep in mind one thing is that we are losing many of our students, and I'm sure many of you would want your children to go abroad and study abroad. But at the same time, another threat that we are facing in Rajasthan is that, again, many of our students, if they can't go, many of our children, if they can't go abroad, there's a lot of intra-migration. And you know very well that our children, they want to go to the bigger cities, they'll want to go to Delhi, they'll want to go to Bangalore, you know, and many of them would love to go to the South because, believe me, and some of you may have been attending webinars, okay, you must have noticed that the students from the South are so responsible. They are so hardworking, they're so intelligent, they are into everything possible. So we as teachers in Rajasthan will have to, as you now see, how we can motivate our students to also shine. Okay, and another third phenomenon which you may have noticed is that the students whom we are getting are the students who are from rural areas, and they are coming to our, you know, to our towns, as you will say. So what is important is that, as I already told you, we have to cater to an audience or we have to cater to our students who are at different levels. So therefore, I request you to see how you can help the weaker student. I don't mean the weaker student. I don't mean, of course, there are also children who have disabilities, and we have to learn how to make our learning, as you will see, more inclusive. Okay, we have to go to these students, and yet you have to cater, because you will definitely get some student who is brilliant, whose parents perhaps are so traditional that they don't want that child to go out of the small towns that we are from. So this is one thing that you will have to keep in mind, as you will see over here. And as I told you, as teachers, we will have to put on our thinking caps and to try and find out ways and means, of, in a way, motivating students, inspiring students, and getting our students, because the sad irony is, I think we all know that most of our graduates are illiterate. I'm sorry to say this, but they don't fare well at all. So we will have to, in a way, think about how we are really sincerely going to improve this particular standard. Let's not only think about our children, my child, my son, my daughter. All these children who come to us are our children. I told you, the teacher takes the place of a parent. And we have to think how we would give these children the best, because as parents, we want the best for our children. So let's see how we can give our students the best. And that very often we always think that I'm only a teacher, or I'm a lecturer or a professor. But remember, as teachers, we hold the destiny, we hold the lives of our students in our hands. We can make them or we can break them. And finally, we are all answerable to God, because we have been given a calling. I told you, we've been given a vocation. We may get by in this particular world, but eventually we will have to give an answer. So what I would like to say is that as teachers, go ahead, love what you're doing, pass on that love to your students, pass on that passion to your students, ignite their minds. And for that, you need to ideate, think. You need to innovate, come up with new things which will arouse their curiosity, and you have to inspire. Let us be like Abdul Kalam. And I hope that many of us would perhaps, as you would say, I would love like that to leave this world while teaching. And I would like to end my valedictory kind of advice to you. I'm going to repeat something, and I'm going to repeat it slowly. And I would like you in your minds to repeat it silently to yourself. Let's say that this is an oath that we take today. Are you with me? This is an oath that we take. This is a promise that we make to ourselves, to our children, to our families, to our students.
Yes,
so I'll say it slowly. I was born to teach.
Was born to teach.
I was born to inspire others.
I was born to inspire others.
Change people.
Change people.
And to never give up.
And to never give up.
Even when faced with challenges.
Even when faced with challenges.
That seem impossible.
That seem possible.
Because nothing is impossible.
Because nothing is impossible.
So I wish all of you, my dear colleagues and friends and my dear students, I hope that in some way I have been able to make a difference and to make you aware of how important you are to society. Without you, we could never have scientists and researchers and engineers and doctors and all the other professions. You are still the most important part of society. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Professor Sandra Lee. I take it a very profound opportunity now to come over and place my very profound word of regards for you for having spared your valuable time to inspire us, to ideate us, and to have us solemnly believe in the pledge that you've given. You said, ma'am, that teaching is not a lost art, but learning certainly is a lost tradition. No, ma'am, it isn't now. Now that we are doing this Gyan Ganga, as students ourselves and as having our peers, our equals, and even our seniors sitting before us as participants in this Gyan Ganga activity, I believe even teaching, even learning is not a lost tradition. We uphold the tradition to be in the stream where our predecessors have been. This is a Ganga. We are floating all on it and standing in their own different points are all connected by the waters of times. Wherever we are together. Thank you so much, ma'am, for everything you did, for everything you were in making us what we stand today. There is a lot of you living within the nerves of each of us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you once again for the opportunity.
And now,
God bless each one of you. Stay happy, stay safe.
Thank you so much, ma'am, once again.
Thank you. May I leave now?
Yes, ma'am, you may.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am. It is by no way saying a good day, a good morning. The morning has prevailed until this time onto us. And in this session of the Faculty Development Program conferred by the Department of College Education, Government of Rajasthan, and our Honorable Commissioner, sir, entrusting us with the work of carrying the torch of learning over in the language and
That
literature.
may be allowed to
English.
be English in its outward form.
But also in its spirit, because we waded in the language and we tried bringing some kind of literature here. As giving the overview of what has gone by in 6 days, in the 5 days, ongoing on the 6th one, just like to relate a story, because primarily I'm a storyteller. I don't teach literature. If I can suffuse any thought into my language, because word is the minimum, the smallest unit of expression. And if in my word, I can be a storyteller, I would definitely reach out to anyone who has a willing ear to listen to me. I begin, and this is a very small anecdote of a scholar approaching a master and saying, I want to learn all. And the master says, I have a cup of which I have for you. And this, the master pours tea into it. The cup goes full and starts spilling. He spills over. It drains out on the earth. And the scholar is bewildered. What now? It is the sheer wastage of energy and time and the resource. So after a long time, after having made forbearance, as you all have done over this long duration of 6 days and 2.5 hours each day, maybe moving on to the third hour, there are things inside you, and I am measuring to give you something from outside. This gesture of mine, wherein I am giving a little bit of a substance from outside, is touching the substance that is within you. And that which is within you does not go unaffected with the labors and the substance that I do. We all have our cups. We all have them filled with learning. And with the learning of others, we know that the substance that lies within us is touched upon, is transformed by, and sometimes we want to vacate what was inside us to give place to the one that is coming in. And the beautiful thought that someone had said earlier was that in the beginner's mind, there are immense possibilities. And in the expert's mind, there are few. Let us all believe that we have been learners in this beautiful program that was devised by the Department of College Education, in which our own principles have withstood us in bearing us to be away from the daily chores of teaching in a classroom, where they believed there was yet still much to come over to us, and we wanted that much over to be contained into our beings. I just hope that as we began, all of us as scholars, as receivers of someone else's learning, should we also end up as perpetrators of that learning. This is all that I, in the capacity of the coordinator of this program, have found and felt all the while. And now, putting a Caesar to my thought, I would request Ma'am Swati Nalwaya, who is the co-convener of the program, to kindly take over with the proceedings of the day and concluding the official valedictory of this FDP Gyan Ganga.
Good afternoon and a warm welcome to the distinguished guests and the participants who are sharing this virtual space for the valedictory session. It is indeed a pleasure to host such events as the Faculty Development Program, which is being conducted under the aegis of Gyan Ganga, meaning the river of knowledge. As the river Ganga symbolizes dynamism and perennial flow, so has this FDP acted as one. All 6 days, with nearly 18 sessions, this river of knowledge on a motley of aspects pertaining to the different genres of English literature and language has flown incessantly. And we, as participants, and even the organizers, have had the rare opportunity of being blessed with so much of knowledge that it seems Goddess Saraswati has actually created a place for herself in each one of us. I'm grateful to the entire team of the Commissionerate for having blessed us with the opportunity of making this Ganga flow from us to nearly 50 other destinations, to disseminate some of the knowledge assimilated from Gyan Ganga. The Faculty Development Program, organized jointly by by the Commissionerate and Samrat Prithviraj Chauhan, Government College, Ajmer. I call upon one of the participants, Dr. Rashmi Bhatnagar, to share the feedback of the 6-day event. Dr. Rashmi Bhatnagar.
Thank you, Swati. Am I audible? Swati, am I audible?
Ma'am, wait a while until we put you as a co-host to the program. Ma'am, please begin.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you so much. Very good afternoon to all of you, members of the department, principal and patron Dr. Pratibha Yadav ma'am, and my fellow participants. Believe me, this is not going to be a formal documented feedback. I'm just here to give a few observations on the 6-day FDP on trends and approaches and learning of English language and literature. At the very outset, I would just like to congratulate the entire department who have meticulously worked days before the beginning of the FDP and also for the continuous 6 days that they have been working on. I know it's a difficult task managing the things, looking after the resource person and having no technical glitches while you are conducting the entire FDPs. So kudos to the entire department for very meticulously and very beautifully organizing it without letting the participants having no fault finding issues to say. The entire department has to be congratulated because it was a very well synchronized, motivated effort. And I hope you continue to do so in the coming years if given an opportunity again. Secondly, I would like to lay stress on the fact that any FDP is successful or any webinar to say is successful on 2 accounts. First is the choice of subject that you take, the choice of theme that you pick up, and the kind of resource persons that you pick for this particular event. If I talk about the subject that is the trends and approaches, I think that's a very apt subject to be discussed in today's times of teaching and learning, because we all know that we are moving at a very rapid pace where how we teach is changing, how we learn is changing. And all of us know that we have moved on from the authoritarian models to the collaborative models of teaching. We as teachers are no longer focusing on learning from rote or memorizing, but we are asking our students to, to apply the knowledge and the language to communicate and to connect. With these things in mind, we have come to generate a kind of content creation tools where we are bringing in the blended learning, we are bringing in embodied learning, mobile learning, gamifications, and trans-languaging and all that stuff. So the choice of the subject in the present context was very, very apt. And this again goes to congratulate the department for engaging us all in how to learn and how to engage and how to be more innovative in classrooms. And the second thing that I would point out is the entire FDP was filled with resource persons who were, dedicated to the topic. Almost all of them spoke very, very well, but again, then there are a few participants who impress you, who, leave an indelible mark on your mind, and you are tempted to listen to them again and again, because it is not only the content that matters, the expression and the way they put it is also very important. And without biases to anybody, I would just like to point out a few names who have been very outstanding in the entire FDP program. To begin with, Professor G.J.V. Prasad. Then you have Professor Hemant from Udaipur, Professor Pradeep Trikha again from Udaipur, Professor Sudhir Rajiv ma'am from Jodhpur, Professor Sanjay Datta from Allahabad, Professor and Madam Kushti, and the last of today's speaker, Madam Sandra Lee. All these speakers have been perfectly wonderful, and they have mesmerized us. I think all the audience, all the participants would clearly endorse my views. The rest of them are fairly good, and just to sum up, I would like to say the entire FTB program was very good. We all learned, because the moment we become stagnant when we stop learning. So all of us as teachers have learned a lot from this FTP program, and I thank the Department of English for giving me an opportunity to express my views for the entire 6-day FTP program. And once again, a big congratulations and a big kudos to the Department of English. Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your positive response and feedback. I now want to invite our next participant, Dr. Ali Hassan, to share his feedback. Dr. Ali Hassan. Dr. Hassan, you can start with your feedback.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Unmute yourself.
Hello.
We can
Am I
hear you,
audible?
Dr. Hassan. Start with your feedback.
Thank you, ma'am. It is a great honor and privilege to me to give the feedback of this sixth-day FDP Faculty Development Program organized by Samrat Prithvi Government College Ajmer and in coordination with Commissioner of College Education. First of all, I would like to thank to Mr. Vinod Bhardwaj, who is the head of the Innovative Skill Cell, who has planned all these Gyan Ganga programs. And I hope that how difficult it is to convince the administration to begin such kind of experiments in the college education. So a lot of thanks to him that he has provided us an opportunity to conduct such kind of courses. And I also congratulate and express my gratitude to all the coordinating members of this FTP at Government College Ajmer. And to name few only, I knew Madam Manju Sharma, Swati Navalka, Sunita Chomaria, and Anil Dadij, our fellow, we know him, that you have done a lot of hard work to organize such a FTP. And the selection of the topics which you have done is also wonderful. Almost you have covered many aspects, many areas which we teachers face problems, and we would like to know others what they are doing in this situation. So it is a lot of learning we have taken during these 6 days. And I say that this pandemic is proved a kind of a blessing in disguise to us. Because earlier we have only think of organizing such seminars because there is a lot of hard work, a lot of money related problems, and how to organize or invite and do it all kind of these things physically. But online it become a very facilitating, very easy thing. I know that it's not so easy. I see that many times that we grapple with the technology, and there are many persons who help us in this program to organize this program. I hope that this is a wonderful experience, and I hope this program has opened a new vista, a new window in the field of teaching, particularly in our subject, because we could collaborate, we could exchange our views intermittently or very oftenly during this virtual space. And some of the sessions were quite mesmerizing. I hope that all of them are quite extraordinary, but some of them are quite mesmerizing. The course began with the G.V. Prasad inaugural speech, and then we have and I thanks particularly to the HOD, Dr. Manju Sharma, because many times when I have seen that one of the speakers were not able to turn up or were not able to log in, so she stepped in and give a wonderful lecture on on the evolution of action in drama. So I hope that this is a wonderful experience to my point of view, and I hope on behalf of all the participants of this course, I thank to Commissionerate and particularly to Department of English to organizing such a wonderful course for us. Thank you, ma'am. I hope that we would continue to listen such kind of courses shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan, for for sharing your views and also words of appreciation. Thank you once again. Now I invite the convener of this 6-day challenging task, Dr. Sanjana Sharma, to present a report of all the sessions conducted in this whole week. Over to Dr. Sanjana for report presentation.
The 6-day-long Gyan Ganga faculty program trends and approaches in teaching and learning of English language and literature that commenced on February 22nd, 2021. Head, Department of English, JNU, Delhi, delivered the keynote address. Through his personal experiences, he underlined the need to create democratic spaces in the classrooms for fruitful teaching learning experience and added that teachers should make their students to ask questions. Organizing Secretary Mrs. Mahima Gaur gave the vote of thanks. In the first technical session, Professor S.K. Harit from JNVU, Jodhpur, delivered an elaborate lecture entitled Indian English Drama, Origin and Evolution. He traced the rich heritage of Indian drama from the Vedic period and deliberated how experimental and innovative it is in terms of thematic and technical qualities. Dr. Vinita Goyal, Associate Professor from GD Government College for Women, Alwar, was the second resource person of the day. Her presentation, entitled Language Through Literature, Language Skill in English Drama Classes, underlined the importance of drama as the most concrete, active, and collaborative form of literature, models for actual language use in life-like situations, purposeful listening, contextual production of language, and interesting situations for reading and writing. She shared her own experiments, how she has used plays like The Doll's House, The Merchant of Venice, and Tughlaq to increase the engagement of the students in the classroom. Dr. Manju Sharma and Dr. Sanjana Sharma were the moderators for the first day. Day 2 began with insightful deliberations by Professor Hemendra Singh Chandalia from Pandit Janardhan Rai Nagar Vidyapeeth, Udaipur. He discussed all major schools of literary theories like formalism, deconstruction, cultural studies, and queer theory in her lecture entitled Introducing Literary Theory. Professor Nikhila H. from the Department of Film Studies the English and Foreign Language University, Hyderabad, gave second presentation of the day entitled Remaking a Literary Classic via Multiple Film Adaptations. In her interesting and comprehensive presentation, she deliberated at length how every adaptation, despite having more or less same story, is made different and fascinating for the viewers. Her lecture was specially focused on one of the literary masterpieces of all times, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Professor Sudhir Rajiv, former head, Department of English, JNVU Jodhpur, was the last resource person of that day. In her enlightening lecture entitled An Overview of Feminism Across the World, she started off with the detailed outlining of the 4 waves of feminism. She concluded her lecture with post-feminism, in which focus is on humanization of the world rather than talks about genders. The moderators for this day were Dr. Swati Nalwaya and Dr. Sarita Chanvaria. The day 3 started with the presentation given by Dr. Manju Sharma, Head Department of English, SPCGCA. In her exemplary discourse entitled Concept of Action in Drama from Aristotle to 21st Century, she elaborated upon the changes that took place through the ages as an impact of French romances, comedy of manners, and drama of inaction as in Waiting for Godot. She also mentioned Shakespearean tragedies. In the second technical session, Dr. Sanjay Arora, Head Department of English, Central University of Rajasthan, gave his knowledgeable presentation on writing a publish-worthy paper, in which he shared his views with participants on writing an ideal research paper. He also shared the latest UGC care list. Professor Pradeep Trikha from the Department of English, MLSU, Depu, was the third resource person of the day. In his magnificent presentation, Negotiating Cultural Space, Recent Non-Fictional Writings, he proposed to look into cultural spaces in 2 non-fictional texts. He mentioned that travel writing is one of the interesting medium to translate culture. Dr. Anil Dhadij and Dr. Mohita Prasad were moderators on day 3. The 4th day of the FDP started with the enlightening lecture from Professor Sanjay Dutt Roy from University of Allahabad. His lecture, The Pedagogy of Theatre, examining the rehearsal space as teaching space, insisted on the need to introduce more and more Indian playwrights in the syllabus so that our students can identify themselves in a better way with the Indian context of the writers. He stressed upon the need to reorient the syllabus to suit the cultural, spiritual, and social background of our own country. The second resource person of the day was Dr. Amrita, Dean, Faculty of Arts and Languages, University of Sonipat. In her presentation, she explained how stylistic approach can help us understand a text. The third speaker of the day was Dr. Kiran Deep, Associate Professor, Chaudhary Ballu Ram Godara, Government Girls College, Sri Ganganagar. Her well-structured presentation was designed to emphasize the use of short stories as effective tools for creating a learner-friendly classroom ethos to enhance the linguistic skills of students and to make them understand the complex concept of literary theory as well. She shared her own experiments, how she used a story by Kate Chopin to make her students understand feminism and enjoy unfurling the complexities of Derrida's theory of deconstruction. The moderator duo for the day 4 were Dr. Manju Sharma and Dr. Sarita Chamaria. Day 5 commenced with the pragmatic lecture, The Complexities of Learning and Teaching in New Emerging World by Dr. Rashri Ranawat from JNVU Jodhpur. She questioned as to why we find it difficult to teach literature, because literature depicts life and society at large, and since life is so complex, so is the teaching of literature. The complexities attract us more than deviating from teaching of it. Through her lecture entitled Enhancing English Communication Skills, Classrooms and Beyond, Dr. Parni Jaggi, Associate Professor, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Government College, Sri Ganganagar, shared her very relevant and effective strategies to redesign our approaches towards building our vocabulary to be in tune with what our audience loves to listen. The last resource person on this day was Dr. Divya Joshi, Associate Professor, Government Dungar College, Bikaner. In her exhaustive and enlightening presentation, From Criticism to Theory, Praxis in English Literature Classroom, she elaborated that both theory and criticism are areas crucial to English literature studies. No research is possible without an acquaintance with these streams, as they provide a tool to study a text. Sandra Lee ma'am, former head Sophia College, Ajmer, has been the first resource person of the 6th day of this FDP, that is today. Her informative and enriching lecture elaborated upon the beautiful relationship between teacher and taught and emphasized that we should encourage our students to think critically. She also expressed her view that various approaches of teaching literature could be mixed to make teaching effective. She suggested that syllabus should be changed every 2 years. Dr. Rajni Sharma, Associate Professor, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Government College, Shri Ganganagar, has been the second resource person on this day last day of the FDP. She has given a very valuable presentation on linguistics and stylistics. As per Madam Rajni Sharma, stylistics is a bridge between languages and literature, and it unravels mysteries in the syntax of the text in the way of a critic or a linguist. Her content was supported by examples from literary texts. Dr. Sarita Jain, Associate Professor, GD Government College for Women, Alwar, was the last resource person of this FDP. In her presentation, Teaching Poetry and Language Learning Through Literature, she emphasized upon the deep connections between literature and language and elaborated how poetry can be used in the classroom to make students enjoy and enhance their linguistic skills. Friends, I have tried to put this beautiful narrative of academically invigorating and intellectually enlivening 6-day-long journey into this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma'am Sanjana, for such a detailed, vivid, and thoughtful presentation of every little or minute detail of the whole week. As you were narrating, we relived each and every session as the scenes of some play. Thank you, ma'am, once again. Now I would like to invite, with great regards, Dr. Sunil Kumar, DCE nominee, for his valedictory address. Dr. Sunil Kumar.
के लिए आभार प्रकट करता हूं कि सबने इतनी बढ़िया इसको सुना। हमारे आयुक्त महोदय संदेश नायक जी और हमारे उप आयुक्त महोदय बीएल गोयल साहब और हमारे नवाचार सेल के नोडल ऑफिसर विनोद भारद्वाज, इन सबको मैं धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करना चाहूँगा कि उन्होंने मुझे इस वैलिडिटी प्रोग्राम में आपके साथ बात करने का मौका दिया। मैंने देखा पिछले 1 महीने में 2-4 वैलिडिटी प्रोग्राम्स में जुड़ा, बॉटनी, जूलॉजी, मैथ्स और आज मैं इंग्लिश लिटरेचर का जो फैकल्टी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम हुआ ज्ञान गंगा के तहत, वास्तव में सारे के सारे प्रोग्राम इतने ज्ञानवर्धक। मैंने अभी पहले सैंडली, प्रोफेसर सैंडली का जो व्याख्यान सुना, हालांकि हेलो, सुन पा रहे हैं? हेलो,
हाँ सर, बोलिए, आपकी आवाज आ रही है।
सैंडली मैम तो प्रोफेसर है, उनका लेक्चर सुना, उन्होंने कितनी अच्छी बातें की। मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि सभी सब्जेक्ट्स के बारे में टीचर को नॉलेज होनी चाहिए। हर सब्जेक्ट में बहुत कुछ छुपा हुआ है। मैंने पिछले 1 घंटे से सुन रहा हूँ, उसमें पूरा फीडबैक सुना और लगा वास्तव में कि जो फैकल्टी डेवलप प्रोग्राम है एक अद्भुत पहल है हमारी विभाग की ओर से। मैं चाहूँगा कमिश्नर साहब से कि ऐसे प्रोग्राम लगातार निरंतर चलते रहें, क्योंकि हम देखो हमारे पास कितने अच्छे रिसोर्स पर्सन्स हैं, कितने अच्छे लोग हैं और कितनी अच्छी अच्छी बातें करते हैं। सैंड्रा ली मैडम ने कहा कि मैं उसको पढ़ के 2 बार उसको सोचा, उन्होंने कहा टीचिंग इज नॉट ए लॉस्ट आर्ट बट ए रिगार्ड फॉर इट्स लॉस्ट ट्रेडिशन। ऐसा लगा कि वास्तव में लिटरेचर में बहुत कुछ है। बीइंग ए लॉ स्टूडेंट, मैंने ऐसा वास्तव में देखा कि बहुत ही अच्छा प्रोग्राम रहा ये। तो मैं सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स को और आपके ऑर्गेनाइजर को धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा कि उन्होंने इतना अच्छा प्रोग्राम किया। डॉक्टर मंजू शर्मा जो कोऑर्डिनेटर हैं उस प्रोग्राम की, डॉक्टर श्रीमती स्वाति नालविया जी मैडम, और इनके जो हमारी प्रिंसिपल साहिबा हैं आपके कॉलेज की, प्रतिभा यादव जी, और आप जो एडी साहब हैं सुनीता पचौरी जी, सभी को मैं इस प्रोग्राम को सही ढंग से अच्छे से कराने के लिए, बहुत ही खूबसूरत तरीके से कराने के लिए धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा, और चाहूँगा कि आप भविष्य में भी ऐसे प्रोग्राम करते रहें और हमारे आयुक्तालय का नाम हमेशा ऊपर रहे। धन्यवाद। हेलो,
Dr. Vinod Bharadwaj, Nodal of Dr. Bharadwaj is the man behind this whole execution. An idea came to his mind. He conceptualized it and shared it in this form. We are honored to have such entities in the Commissionerate who are deft in giving brilliant expression to such abstracts. Over to Dr. Bharadwaj for his kind words.
It appears that some important thing has held him back. He has sent his
saying that he would very much
like to be on.
Really regret
Really regret
officer
the nodal officer
available at
not
this
being
point of
available
time.
at this point
So
of
we carry
time.
on.
So we
with
carry
today's
on
activity and
with the
request ma'am,
activity. I request ma'am to please.
Now I would like to call upon Dr. Sunita Pachori, Assistant Director, Ajmer Division and co-patron of this course. She has been actively involved and monitored each and every development taking place in the execution of this program, right from its allotment to the college. She has
a great support and
has helped us sail through this venture successfully. Ma'am Pachori is invited to address this session.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As we come to closer of this FDP, the 6th day jointly organized FDP by the Government College Ajmer English Department on 22nd to 27th February 2020-21. The FDP approved to be the meeting ground of the faculty of English. It was an effective platform to share their knowledge and idea. During the valedictory ceremony function, I would like to thank the team of Commissionerate, Dr. Sandesh, Shri Sandesh Nayak, Commissioner, Additional Commissioner, Dr. B.L. Goyal, and Innovation Cell, Dr. Vinod Bharadwaj, nominee of Commissionerate, Dr. Sunil Kumar. They give an opportunity to Government College Ajmer to organize this function behalf of Directorate of College Education. It is an association which bring all the English teachers under the same umbrella, where they can prepare the course plan, review the updates, the syllabus, organize educative program, and also solve academic problem. Congratulations to the organizers of the FDP, and the credit goes to well-organized and structured program by the principal of SPC Government College, Dr. Pratibha Yadav. Once again, I congratulate her. And the force of and the energy of the English department, those create a new era in a college education. They also the part of this big show. So I congratulate Department of English, whole department, including head of the department, Dr. Manju Sharma, Dr. Sanjana Sharma, Mahima God, Dr. Anil Dadich, Swati Nalvaya, Sarita Chavaria, and Mohta Prashad to this program. This is a forum where the English fraternity can interact and share their ideas. Before me, Dr. Sunil conclude this inspiring word for the teachers, the example of Madam Lee. Once again, I thank you all the behalf of Commissionerate College Education and my division Nodal College, SPC Government College, Ajmer. Thank you all department. Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? I also thank all the distinguished lecturers,
without whose dynamic leadership, inspiration, and unceasing support, we would not have been able to make this program reach its culmination and award it its due share of success. Over to Ma'am Yadav for a presidential address. Ma'am Pratibha Yadav.
थैंक यू मैडम। इस FDP प्रोग्राम की कोऑर्डिनेटर डॉक्टर मंजू शर्मा, कन्वीनर डॉक्टर संजना शर्मा, कमिश्नरेट के नॉमिनी सुनील कुमार जी, हमारे अजमेर संभाग की असिस्टेंट डायरेक्टर डॉक्टर सुनीता पचौरी और आयोजन सचिव महिमा गौड़, और इस FDP प्रोग्राम में भाग लेने वाले समस्त हमारे प्रबुद्धजन। ये प्रोग्राम संयुक्त तत्वाधान में चूंकि आयोजित किया जा रहा है, हमारे महाविद्यालय को 6 FDP प्रोग्राम ज्ञान गंगा के तहत आयोजित करने के लिए दिए गए थे, और ये मेरे लिए बड़े गर्व की बात है कि सभी प्रोग्राम बड़े सक्सेसफुली आयोजित हुए, और आज ये अंतिम प्रोग्राम का अंतिम दिवस जो समापन समारोह है ये आयोजित किया जा रहा है। मुझे आशा है कि आप सब ने इस प्रोग्राम के तहत इसमें जो प्रबुद्धजनों के जो लेक्चर्स हुए हैं उनसे बहुत कुछ ग्रहण किया होगा। नई नई जो टेक्निक्स हैं लर्निंग की, सिखाने की बच्चों को, वो आप लोगों ने जानी होंगी, एक दूसरे के विचार आप लोगों ने शेयर किए होंगे और इससे काफ़ी लाभान्वित हुए होंगे। इंग्लिश लिटरेचर, इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज के संबंध में मेरा जो कंसर्न हमेशा रहता है वो मैं ये देखती आई हूँ कि कॉलेजेस में, राजस्थान में स्पेशली, जो बच्चे आते हैं वो थोड़ा इंग्लिश के प्रति उनमें थोड़ा भय होता है, थोड़ा डर होता है, क्योंकि वो ग्रामीण परिवेश के होते हैं। और हमारे टीचर का, अच्छी टीचिंग का जो लक्ष्य यही होना चाहिए कि उनके अंदर ये जो भय है इंग्लिश के प्रति, उसको कैसे दूर करें।
और उसको दूर करके किस तरह से उनको आगे बढ़ाया जाए। पढ़ने को तो वो पढ़ भी लेते हैं, लेकिन बोलने में उनको बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आती है। ये मैंने हमारे बच्चों को देखा है। तो आई होप कि इस जो 6 दिवसीय आप लोगों का जो प्रोग्राम हुआ है उसमें इन सब विषयों को आप लोगों ने शायद डिस्कस किया होगा और उसके आप लोगों ने शायद रास्ते भी निकाले होंगे कि किस तरह से हम हमारे स्टूडेंट्स को कंफर्टेबल बनाएं इंग्लिश के लिए, क्योंकि ये वो लैंग्वेज है जिसमें स्टूडेंट को करना ही होता है, सीखना ही होता है आगे बढ़ने के लिए उसे। लेकिन वही बात है कि जब बच्चा सोचेगा हिंदी में तो बोलेगा इंग्लिश में कैसे, क्योंकि उसका जो परिवेश है, जो आसपास के जो लोग हैं, उसका घर परिवार है, उसमें वो अपनी मातृभाषा में बात करता है, हिंदी में बोलता है या जो उसकी खुद की लैंग्वेज है उसमें बोलता है। और ऐसे समय में फिर वो इंग्लिश को कैसे समझे और कैसे आगे बढ़े, उसके लिए ये उसके लिए बहुत बड़ी एक चैलेंज होता है। इसीलिए कई बच्चे जो कि माँ बाप इंग्लिश मीडियम में डाल देते हैं, लेकिन कई बच्चे इसमें बहुत सहम से जाते हैं और बहुत पिछड़ जाते हैं। इसीलिए आज का शायद न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में जो बच्चों की जो बेसिक जो एजुकेशन है वो लोकल लैंग्वेज में या उसकी जो मातृभाषा में उसमें देने के पे ज़्यादा जोर दिया गया है। लेकिन आप लोगों का जो ये प्रोग्राम है, ये मेरी एक फीलिंग थी बच्चों स्टूडेंट्स की तरफ से, जो कि मैं आप लोगों को शेयर करना चाहती थी कि एक्चुअल में बच्चों की वास्तव में इनकी परेशानी क्या है इंग्लिश को लेकर के। तो आई होप कि आप लोगों ने इस संबंध में काफ़ी विचार किया होगा। मैं हमारी इस महाविद्यालय की टीम को जिन्होंने बहुत मेहनत की है इसके लिए, उनको सबको बधाई देती हूँ और आप सभी को बहुत शुभकामनाएं। थैंक यू। A special mention to our principal and patron, Professor Dr. Pratibha Yadav, being the catalyst that inspired us to do our best and stood behind us throughout the program. Thank you so much, ma'am. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to ma'am Dr. Sunita Pachauri,
Assistant Director, Ajmer Division, for the valuable guidance and readiness for the help she extended whenever needed. Next, I would like to express my gratitude and thanks to Sir Vinod Bharadwaj for entrusting us with the responsibility of organizing this faculty development program. I also want to thank Ma'am Gunjit Kaur and Dr. Sunil Kumar Sir, DCE nominees for this FDP for their words of encouragement. Further, I am grateful to all our distinguished speakers who shared their knowledge with us and made this program interesting and meaningful. I also extend my thanks to Ma'am Dr. Manju Sharma, Coordinator, Ma'am Dr. Sanjana Sharma, Convener, Ma'am Swati Nalvaya, Co-Convener of this FDP, and also to Sir Dr. Anil Dadij and Ma'am Mohita Prasad, members of the support team, for their cooperation, coordination, and unflinching support, and without whom this program could not be a success. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones. I also want to thank the people who worked behind the scenes for successful and smooth functioning of this course. Our technical arrangement team, headed by Dr. V. Uma. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Vikas Saxena, Sir C.P. Dadalani, Dr. Kashif Razasad, and all the members of the technical committee. Thanks are also due to Dr. Dheeraj Puri Goswami for articulating the news for everyday proceedings. Thank you so much, sir. I extend my thanks to our ministerial staff also for their support and cooperation. And finally, my heartfelt thanks to the participants and all-star team for their active participation, constant feedbacks, and patience. In the end, once again, I would like to thank everyone who helped us make this FDP a reality. Thank you for being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ma'am Sarita. By the grace of God, the pains taken and the efforts that we made in getting the deliberations of the most worthiest of scholars and on the best of topics with its variety has proved fruitful. I hope this whole program has been enriching and a true learning experience for all of us. We hope that whatever we have assimilated here will be disseminated by us to our respective subjects in each one's institution. Thank you all for being with us these 6 days, and goodbye. We wind up with this session. Kindly fill in the form for today. Form and submit it to the principal, which will go to the directorate. Please do that. Thank you and goodbye.
I request all participants to kindly make their video on so that we can take a group photograph of all of you. Can you turn your video on? All the participants, can they turn the video on? I request all participants to turn the video on.
अनिल सर आप भी आइए ना प्लीज अनिल सर प्लीज कम हम तो
अच्छा they'll do it from there.
Yes, finally. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We've taken the screenshots.